When single dad Ethan Cole accidentally sent a flirty text meant for his dating app match to the CEO of the pharmaceutical company holding his dying daughter's last hope for survival, he expected lawyers, lawsuits, maybe even a restraining order. What he didn't expect was Ardenvale herself standing on his doorstep 17 minutes later, designer heels clicking against his cracked concrete porch, demanding to know why her company had buried his child's case 3 times. One wrong number, one desperate father, one woman powerful enough to save a life, or destroy the man begging for mercy. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far Maya's story reaches. The text was supposed to go to Jessica. Jessica from the dating app. Jessica with the kind smile in her profile picture, the one who'd messaged him first because, miracle of miracles, she hadn't immediately unmatched when he mentioned having a kid. Jessica, who'd been flirting back and forth with him for 3 days, making him feel like maybe, just maybe, there was still room in his catastrophically complicated life for something normal. Something that wasn't hospital bills and insurance appeals, and the crushing weight of watching his daughter fade a little more each day. The text Ethan had typed at 3:17 p.m. on that particular Tuesday read, "You're way too smart and beautiful to be wasting time on a broke single dad, but I'm really glad you're giving me a chance anyway. Dinner Friday? I promise I clean up better than my profile pic suggests. Us, cute. Slightly self-deprecating. The kind of message that had taken him 20 minutes to compose because he was catastrophically out of practice at this whole dating thing. He'd hit send while standing in the pharmacy pickup line at CVS, juggling Maya's prescriptions and his phone, already running 12 minutes late to pick her up from school. The response came back 4 minutes later. I don't recall us having plans for Friday or any communication prior to this message. This number belongs to Arden Vale, CEO of Helix Biosciences. I believe you have the wrong contact." Ethan's stomach dropped through the floor. No, 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 no. His hand started shaking as he scrolled frantically through his recent messages, trying to figure out how this had happened, how he could possibly have... Oh God. Yesterday he'd saved the main Helix Biosciences contact number in his phone after his 3rd rejection from their experimental treatment program. He'd been so angry, so desperate, that he'd typed out a dozen furious texts he never sent, venting his rage at the faceless corporation that kept slamming doors in Maya's face. He must have accidentally saved the CEO's direct line instead of the general inquiry number. And just now, distracted and rushed, he'd pulled up what he thought was Jessica's contact and his phone buzzed again. "Mr. Cole, I presume. Your daughter, Maya Cole, patient ID HX2847M, the one we've rejected from trial protocol 7 3 times in the past 4 months?" Ethan thought he might throw up right there in the CVS, surrounded by cough drops and greeting cards. She knew exactly who he was. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could he possibly say? "Sorry, didn't mean to sexually harass you while begging for my kid's life." There was no coming back from this. He'd just torpedoed Maya's last chance at... The next message made his vision blur. "What's your address?" Ethan stared at the screen. This had to be a trap. CEOs of major pharmaceutical companies didn't just ask for your address. They sent cease and desist letters. They had their legal teams destroy you. Mr. Cole, your address, now." His thumbs moved before his brain could stop them, typing out the address of the small rental house in Riverside he shared with Maya, the place with the leaking bathroom faucet he couldn't afford to fix, and the front porch that desperately needed new boards, and the backyard where Maya used to play before she got too sick to run around anymore. "Stay there. I'm coming to you." That was 14 minutes ago. Now Ethan stood in his living room, frantically shoving toys into the already overflowing toy box, grabbing armfuls of clean laundry he'd been meaning to fold for 3 days off the couch, kicking Maya's light-up sneakers under the coffee table. The house was a disaster. His life was a disaster. And the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company was apparently driving to his address right now because he'd accidentally sent her a flirty text meant for someone else. This was it. This was how he lost everything. The doorbell rang. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. For a wild second, he considered not answering, just hiding in his own house like a coward until she went away. But the doorbell rang again, more insistent this time, and he forced his feet to move toward the door. He pulled it open. Arden Vale stood on his porch. Ethan had seen her before, obviously, in news articles, in the rare interview she granted, in the polished corporate headshot on the Helix Biosciences website. But seeing her in person was something else entirely. She was tall, maybe 5'9" in heels that probably cost more than his monthly rent, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, charcoal gray suit that fit like it had been tailored specifically for her body, eyes the color of winter storms, currently fixed on him with an intensity that made him want to apologize for existing. She looked like power incarnate, like someone who could destroy his life with a phone call. Arden Vale, she said, though obviously he knew that. Her voice was crisp, professional, utterly devoid of warmth. "May I come in?" It wasn't really a question. Ethan stepped aside, and she walked into his living room with the same confidence she probably brought to boardrooms and shareholder meetings. Those storm gray eyes swept across the space, taking in the mismatched furniture from Goodwill, the crayon drawings stuck to the walls with tape, the pile of medical bills on the kitchen counter he'd been avoiding, the scattered picture books and stuffed animals that marked this as a home where a child lived. "I apologize for the mess," Ethan said, hating how his voice shook. "If I'd known you were coming, I would have—" "Where's your daughter?" Arden cut him off. "She's—" Ethan glanced at the clock. "She's still at school. I have to pick her up in 20 minutes. Arden nodded once, sharp and efficient. Then she turned those relentless eyes back on him. "The text you sent me. That was genuinely an accident?" "Yes." The word came out strangled. "I'm so sorry. I was trying to message someone from— It doesn't matter. I saved your number yesterday after the last rejection, and I must have clicked the wrong contact, and I swear I didn't mean to—" "Rejected 3 times, Arden said. It wasn't a question, but Ethan nodded anyway. "For a trial that has open enrollment spots." Ethan blinked. What?" "Protocol 7. The immune restoration trial for pediatric primary immunodeficiency disorders." Arden's voice was clinical, detached, like she was reciting facts from a medical journal. "We currently have 47 participants enrolled out of a maximum capacity of 80. There are 33 open spots. Your daughter was rejected 3 times despite meeting the preliminary criteria outlined in our public documentation." The words hit Ethan like physical blows. I don't understand. They said she didn't qualify. They said the selection committee reviewed her case and—" "The selection committee is a formality." Arden pulled out her phone, fingers moving across the screen with practiced speed. "The real approvals happen at the executive level, which means someone specifically blocked your daughter's enrollment." The room tilted. Ethan reached out, gripping the back of his secondhand couch to steady himself. "Why would anyone do that? She's 8 years old, she has CVID, and she's been in the hospital 6 times this year. And the immunoglobulin treatments aren't working anymore, and we're running out of—" His voice cracked. "Why would someone deliberately—" "That's what I intend to find out." Arden's eyes hadn't left her phone screen. "But first, I need you to tell me about Maya. Not the medical file, not the lab results or the diagnostic codes. I need you to tell me who she is." Ethan stared at her. Of all the things he'd expected from this encounter, threats, legal action, maybe even a police escort off some corporate blacklist, this wasn't it. He swallowed hard. "I don't know what you want me to—" "Start with the basics." Arden finally looked up from her phone, and something in her expression had shifted. Not softened, exactly, but opened, like she'd unlocked a door she usually kept bolted shut. "How old was she when she was diagnosed?" 4. The memory still hurt, even 4 years later. "She kept getting sick, ear infections, pneumonia, sinus infections that wouldn't clear up no matter how many antibiotics they threw at her. Our pediatrician kept saying it was normal, that some kids just have weaker immune systems, but I knew something was wrong. A father knows." Arden nodded, and Ethan found himself continuing, the words spilling out like a dam had broken. "It took 9 months to get the diagnosis. 9 months of watching her miss birthday parties and school field trips because she was too sick to go. 9 months of sleeping in hospital chairs and learning medical terminology I never wanted to know. When they finally figured out what it was, CVID, common variable immunodeficiency, the doctor acted like we should be relieved because at least now we had a name for it. But a name doesn't change anything. It just means you know what's killing your kid. Her mother? Arden asked quietly. Ethan's jaw tightened. Left when Maya was 2. Decided single motherhood wasn't aligned with her life goals. I haven't heard from her in 6 years. So you've been doing this alone? I've been doing what any parent would do. Ethan met Arden's gaze directly. Whatever it takes to keep my daughter alive. Something flickered across Arden's face. Recognition, maybe, or understanding, but it was gone before Ethan could identify it. The IVIG treatments, Arden said. Intravenous immunoglobulin. You said they're not working anymore? They were for a while. Maya would get her infusions every 3 weeks and she'd be okay for a bit. Not normal, but okay. But over the past year, the infections have been getting worse, more frequent, harder to treat. Last month, she developed pneumonia that put her in the ICU for 5 days. The pulmonologist said if we can't get her immune system under control, the next serious infection could... He couldn't finish the sentence. Arden's expression had gone carefully neutral, but Ethan saw her fingers tighten around her phone. Your income? She asked. The question was so blunt it took Ethan a second to process. I'm a freelance graphic designer. I work from home so I can be here when Maya needs me. It's not much, but it's flexible, and that matters more than... Annual? Ethan felt heat crawl up his neck. Maybe $35,000 in a good year. This hasn't been a good year. Insurance? Marketplace plan? High deductible. I've hit my out-of-pocket maximum every year since Maya was diagnosed. He gestured toward the kitchen counter, where the pile of medical bills sat like an accusation. I'm about $40,000 in debt. I had to file for bankruptcy last year just to keep the collectors from garnishing my wages. Not that there's much to garnish. He waited for judgment, for the disdain that usually followed these admissions. People love to offer opinions about fiscal responsibility when they'd never had to choose between rent and medication. But Arden just nodded, still typing on her phone. The trial applications. Walk me through the rejection process. I filled out the preliminary form online the first time back in February. Got an automated response saying they'd review Maya's case and get back to me within 2 weeks. 3 weeks later, I got an email saying she didn't meet the eligibility criteria. No explanation beyond that. And the second application? April. I called the patient liaison office first this time, explained Maya's situation, asked what criteria she'd failed to meet. They said they couldn't discuss specific cases, but encouraged me to reapply if her condition had changed. So I did. Same result. Generic rejection, no details. Third time? Last month. Ethan's hands curled into fists at his sides. I was desperate by then. I drove to your company's headquarters in San Diego, asked to speak to someone in person about Maya's case. Security wouldn't let me past the lobby. I left a folder with all her medical records, test results, everything. Begged them to just look at it. 2 weeks later, another rejection email. Arden had stopped typing. She was staring at her phone screen with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. What? He asked. What is it? Your final appeal hearing, Arden said slowly. It's scheduled for tomorrow, 2 p.m. Yeah. Ethan's chest constricted. Last chance. If they reject her again, that's it. There's no other trial that matches her diagnosis, no other options. Who's conducting the hearing? I don't know. The email just said it would be reviewed by the Program Oversight Committee. Arden's jaw clenched. The Oversight Committee is 3 people. Dr. Sarah Chen, head of clinical trials, Dr. Marcus Williams, pediatric immunology specialist, and Gavin Rourke, board member and program administrator. The way she said that last name, clipped, controlled, like she was forcing it through her teeth, made Ethan's instincts prickle. Is there a problem with... I need to see Maya's file, Arden cut him off. Everything you have. Medical records, test results, the rejection letters, all of it. It's in my car. I was going to review it tonight before tomorrow's hearing. Ethan headed for the door, then paused. Why are you doing this? You don't know us. I sent you an accidental text message and now you're here asking about my daughter's medical history. This doesn't make sense. Arden met his eyes, and for the first time since she'd walked through his door, her professional mask slipped. What Ethan saw underneath was something raw and complicated. Anger, maybe, or pain, or something that looked like both twisted together. Because 33 open spots means 33 children who could be in that trial right now aren't, she said quietly. And if your daughter was deliberately excluded, I need to know why. I need to know who decided her life was disposable. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications Ethan was afraid to examine too closely. He went to his car and retrieved the overstuffed folder he'd been carrying around for weeks, the one that contained every piece of paper documentation of Maya's illness. When he came back inside, Arden had moved to his kitchen table, clearing a space among the breakfast dishes he hadn't had time to wash. She took the folder without comment and started going through it with the focused intensity of someone conducting a criminal investigation. Ethan watched her for a minute, this stranger in his kitchen. This powerful woman who'd shown up at his door because of a wrong number and was now reading his daughter's entire medical history like it mattered, like Maya mattered. I need to get Maya from school, he said finally. Are you staying? Arden didn't look up from the papers. Yes. Okay. Ethan grabbed his keys, then hesitated. She doesn't know about tomorrow's hearing. I haven't told her because I didn't want to get her hopes up again. So if you could just... I won't say anything, Arden said. Right, okay. I'll be back in 15 minutes. He was halfway to the door when Arden's voice stopped him. Mr. Cole? He turned back. The text you sent me, she said, still looking at Maya's file. You said you clean up better than your profile picture suggests. That implies you have a profile picture somewhere. Dating app? Ethan felt his face go hot. Yeah. I know the timing is terrible with everything going on with Maya, but my neighbor convinced me to try meeting someone, and I thought maybe if I could just have one normal thing in my life. It's not terrible, Arden interrupted. Her eyes finally lifted from the papers, and there was something almost soft in her expression. It's human. Don't apologize for wanting something other than survival. The words settled into Ethan's chest, finding a place that had been empty for a very long time. He nodded, not trusting his voice, and headed out to get his daughter. Maya was waiting in the school pickup line when Ethan pulled up, her frozen backpack nearly as big as she was, her small face lighting up when she saw his car. She was tiny for 8, the illness and treatments keeping her smaller than her classmates. Her hair, once thick and curly like his, had thinned from the immunoglobulin infusions, and there were shadows under her eyes that no child should have. But when she smiled, she was still the most beautiful thing Ethan had ever seen. Daddy! She climbed into the back seat, struggling a bit with the seatbelt. Ethan reached back to help her click it. We learned about the solar system today. Did you know Jupiter has 79 moons? Miss Peterson said that's more moons than any other planet. That's a lot of moons, Ethan agreed, pulling away from the curb. What else did you learn? Maya launched into a detailed description of her day, the art project she'd made, the book they'd read during reading time, the argument between 2 boys at recess about who was faster. Ethan listened, asking questions, letting her voice fill the car and push back against the weight of everything else. But as they pulled into their driveway, Maya stopped mid-sentence. Whose car is that? She asked, pointing at the sleek black sedan parked on the street. We have a visitor, Ethan said carefully, a lady from the medicine company we've been talking to. Maya's eyes went wide. The trial people? Yeah, baby. But remember what we talked about. Don't get my hopes up, Maya finished, her voice going flat in a way that made Ethan's heart crack. I remember. They walked inside together, Maya's small hand in his, and found Arden exactly where Ethan had left her, still at the kitchen table. But now the papers were organized into neat stacks, and she was typing rapidly on her laptop, her expression grim. She looked up when they entered, and something in her face changed. Ethan saw it happen, the careful professional distance she'd maintained shattering like glass when her eyes landed on Maya. It was there and gone in an instant, but Ethan caught it. Recognition, pain, something personal and devastating. You must be Maya, Arden said, and her voice was gentler than Ethan had heard it yet. Maya pressed closer to Ethan's side, suddenly shy. Yes, ma'am. It's nice to meet you. I'm Arden. She closed her laptop, giving Maya her full attention. Your dad tells me you learned about Jupiter today. Maya perked up slightly. It has 79 moons. That's more than any other planet in our whole solar system. That is a lot of moons, Arden agreed seriously. Which one would you live on if you could pick? Europa, Maya answered immediately. Because it has an ocean under the ice, and maybe there could be fish or mermaids or something cool like that. A real smile crossed Arden's face, small but genuine. That's an excellent choice. Very scientific reasoning. Maya beamed, and Ethan felt something in his chest unclench slightly. Sweetie, can you go wash your hands and get started on your homework? Ethan said. I need to talk to Ms. Vale about some grown-up stuff. Is it about the trial? Maya asked, her voice going small again. Ethan glanced at Arden, who gave a tiny nod. Yeah, baby, it is. Okay. Maya headed toward the bathroom, then paused. Ms. Vale? Yes? Are you going to say no again? The question hung in the air, devastating in its simplicity. Arden stood up from the table, walked over to where Maya stood, and crouched down so they were at eye level. Ethan started to intervene. This was his daughter, his responsibility to protect from more disappointment. But something in Arden's posture stopped him. I'm going to find out why you were told no before, Arden said quietly. And I'm going to fix it. That's a promise. Adults make promises all the time, Maya said, with the weary wisdom of a child who'd been disappointed too many times. They don't always keep them. You're right, Arden said. They don't. But I keep mine. Always. Maya studied her for a long moment, those two old eyes searching Arden's face for truth. Whatever she found there must have satisfied her, because she nodded once and headed off to wash her hands. Arden stood up, and Ethan saw her hand was shaking slightly before she clenched it into a fist. Coffee? He offered. It's cheap and terrible, but it's hot. Please. They moved to the kitchen, Ethan putting on a pot of the discount brand coffee he bought in bulk while Arden settled back at the table. He could hear Maya in her room, dragging her desk chair across the floor, settling in to do her homework like she'd been asked. You found something in her file, Ethan said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Arden pulled up something on her laptop, turned it so Ethan could see. These are the digital footprints of Maya's application submissions. Every time you submitted, there should be a standard review process: preliminary screening, medical evaluation, committee assessment, final decision. It usually takes 2 to 3 weeks. Ethan leaned closer, studying the screen. Okay. All 3 of Maya's applications were flagged for immediate rejection within 6 hours of submission. No medical evaluation, no committee assessment. Someone with executive override access took one look at her name and killed the application before it ever reached the people who were supposed to review it. The coffee pot beeped. Ethan poured 2 cups with hands that had gone numb. Who? He asked. Who would do that? Arden's jaw tightened. The override code used belongs to Gavin Rourke. The board member, the one you mentioned before. Yes. Why? Ethan handed her a mug, their fingers brushing briefly. Why would some board member I've never met care enough about my daughter to sabotage her applications? Arden wrapped both hands around the coffee mug like she was trying to warm herself from the inside out. Because Gavin Rourke is my ex-husband, she said quietly. And he's been using anything he can get his hands on as leverage in our divorce. Ethan sat down heavily. You're divorced? Divorcing. It's been contentious. Gavin is fighting me for a larger settlement, threatening to go public with company information that could damage our stock price if I don't give him what he wants. The board is split on whether to remove him or not. It's been a nightmare. And Maya, Ethan's voice came out strangled. My daughter is part of that? Her life is a bargaining chip in your divorce? I didn't know. Arden met his eyes directly, and the fury in her expression was incandescent. I swear to you, I had no idea he was blocking applications. I don't personally review trial enrollments. That's not part of my role. But now that I do know, what are you going to do? Ethan demanded. Because if you think I'm going to just sit here while some bitter ex-husband plays games with my kid's life, I'm calling an emergency board meeting, Arden said, her voice hard as steel. Tonight. I'm presenting evidence of Gavin's interference in the trial selection process and moving for his immediate removal from any position with patient-facing responsibilities. Will it work? It has to. Arden set down her coffee mug with enough force that liquid sloshed over the rim. Because I'm not letting him hurt anyone else. Not you. Not Maya. Not the other children he's probably blocked for equally petty reasons. Ethan stared at this woman who'd walked into his life 3 hours ago and was now going to war for his daughter. Why? And don't tell me it's just about the principle of the thing. There's something else, something personal. Arden was quiet for a long moment. In the background, Ethan could hear Maya humming to herself while she did her homework. The sound as normal and precious as breathing. I had a younger sister, Arden said finally. Lily. She died when she was 7. Primary immunodeficiency disorder, same category as Maya's diagnosis. This was 23 years ago, before the treatments we have now existed, before trials like Protocol 7 were even imaginable. Ethan's breath caught. Arden, I watched her fade, Arden continued, her voice carefully controlled. Watched the infections take her piece by piece. Watched my parents exhaust every option. Beg every doctor, try every experimental treatment anyone would let us near. Nothing worked. Nothing could work. The science just wasn't there yet. That's why you got into pharmaceuticals, Ethan said softly. That's why I built Helix Biosciences, Arden corrected. I wanted to create the company that could save the children we couldn't save back then. The company that would actually put patients first, that would treat every case like it mattered, like every child deserved the same chance at life regardless of their parents' bank account or insurance status. Her hands clenched on the table. And now I find out my ex-husband has been using my company, my sister's legacy, to play power games. Has been blocking children who should be in our program. Has been letting kids like Maya fall through the cracks for his own vendetta. The raw pain in her voice made Ethan's chest ache. I'm going to destroy him, Arden said quietly. Not because of the divorce, not because of what he's done to me, but because he looked at your daughter's application and decided her life was worth less than whatever satisfaction he'd get from making me suffer. That's unforgivable. Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway, her homework folder in hand. Daddy, I need help with my math. We're doing fractions, and I don't understand how to... She stopped, looking between Ethan and Arden. Are you guys okay? You both look sad. Ethan forced a smile. We're fine, baby. Just talking about some complicated stuff. Let me see that math. He spent the next 20 minutes at the kitchen table with Maya, walking her through fraction problems while Arden made phone calls in the other room, her voice sharp and commanding as she scheduled her emergency board meeting. Every so often, Ethan would catch fragments of conversation. Tonight, not tomorrow. I don't care if he objects. Get the lawyers on standby. Maya leaned against his shoulder while they worked, her weight slight and precious. And Ethan thought about all the homework sessions they might not get to have if tomorrow's appeal failed, all the fractions she might never learn, all the moons of Jupiter she'd never get to study in high school astronomy class. One wrong text message. That's all that had stood between Maya and the possibility of survival. If he hadn't accidentally sent that flirty message to the CEO of the company holding his daughter's fate, he'd be sitting here right now with no idea that someone had been sabotaging them. He'd go to tomorrow's hearing and get rejected again and never know it had been rigged from the start. The thought made him dizzy. Arden came back into the kitchen just as Maya finished her last problem. Meeting set for 8 o'clock, she said. I need to go prepare, but I'll be back tomorrow morning before your hearing. You don't have to, Ethan started. Yes, Arden said firmly. Arden, but I do. Maya looked up from her homework. Are you coming back to help my dad? I'm coming back to help both of you, Arden said. Will you bring me something? Maya asked with the shamelessness of an 8-year-old. Maya, Ethan said, mortified, but Arden laughed, a real, genuine laugh that transformed her whole face. What would you like? Maya considered seriously. A rock from Jupiter's moon, but since that's probably too hard, maybe just a donut. I think I can manage a donut, Arden said solemnly. She gathered her things, and Ethan walked her to the door. On the porch, with the evening settling in around them and the sound of Maya singing to herself drifting from inside, Arden paused. That text, she said. The one you meant for your date. You weren't wrong. Ethan blinked. About what? You do clean up well. I looked at your dating profile. Heat flooded Ethan's face. You, what? How did you? I'm a CEO of a tech-adjacent company. Finding someone's dating profile isn't exactly challenging. Her lips quirked. For what it's worth, Jessica seems nice. I hope it works out. That's not, Ethan stammered, completely thrown. I'm not thinking about dating right now. I have slightly more pressing concerns. Good, Arden said. Because when this is over, when Maya is healthy and stable and you're not drowning in medical debt and crisis management, you should go on that date. You should have dinner and laugh and remember what it feels like to be something other than a father in survival mode. You deserve that. So do you, Ethan said before he could stop himself. Arden's expression shuddered. I'm not the one dying alone in a rental house because I'm too busy keeping my daughter alive to have a personal life. No, you're the one building a pharmaceutical empire to honor your dead sister while your ex-husband tries to burn it all down around you, which sounds equally lonely. They stared at each other, the air between them charged with something Ethan couldn't quite name. Tomorrow, Arden said finally. I'll see you tomorrow. She walked to her car, heels clicking on the cracked sidewalk, and drove away. Ethan stood on his porch for a long minute, trying to process everything that had happened in the past 4 hours. This morning, he'd been a single dad with a dying daughter and no hope left. Tonight, he was a single dad with a dying daughter who somehow had the most powerful woman in pharmaceutical medicine going to war on his behalf, all because of one wrong number. Daddy, Maya called from inside, can we have mac and cheese for dinner? Yeah, baby, Ethan called back, heading inside. We can have whatever you want. He made box mac and cheese while Maya chattered about her day, helped her with her bath, read her 3 chapters of the book they were working through together. Normal evening routine, normal parent-child rhythms, as if the entire trajectory of their lives hadn't just shifted on its axis. When Maya was finally asleep, her breathing steady and peaceful in the dimness of her room, Ethan sat in his living room with his laptop and pulled up the Helix Biosciences website, found the corporate leadership page, looked at Arden's professional photo, polished, powerful, giving away nothing. Then he found the archived news article from 23 years ago. Tech executive's daughter dies after battle with rare immune disorder. There were photos of young Arden at her sister's funeral, her face destroyed with grief. She couldn't have been more than 15, 16 maybe. Already carrying the weight of a loss that would shape her entire life. Ethan closed his laptop and sat in the dark, thinking about the strange mathematics of tragedy, how one family's devastation could become another's salvation. How Arden had spent 2 decades building something to honor her sister's memory, only to discover it had been corrupted from within. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Board meeting concluded. Gavin has been removed from all patient-facing roles, effective immediately pending a full investigation. Your hearing tomorrow will be conducted by Dr. Chen and Dr. Williams only. I'll be there as well, in an observational capacity. Get some sleep, Mr. Cole. Tomorrow everything changes. Ethan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, "Thank you." And it's Ethan. The response came seconds later. Get some sleep, Ethan. He did eventually, though his dreams were full of wrong numbers and second chances and the sound of a little girl laughing about moons. Morning came too fast and too slow all at once. Ethan woke at 5:30 to the sound of his phone alarm, his heart already racing with the knowledge of what today meant. Maya's final hearing, the last official chance to get her into the trial that could save her life. Except now everything had changed. He made coffee in the pre-dawn quiet, standing at his kitchen window and watching the sky lighten from black to gray to pale gold. Somewhere across the city, Arden Vale was probably awake too, preparing for a day that would determine whether all her corporate maneuvering had actually meant anything, whether removing her ex-husband from the approval process would be enough to undo months of deliberate sabotage. Ethan's phone buzzed at 6:15. I'm bringing breakfast. Do you have food allergies I should know about? He stared at the message, still not quite able to process that this was his life now. That the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company was asking about his food allergies. No allergies, you really don't have to bring food. I promised Maya a donut. I don't break promises. See you at 7:30. Maya wandered into the kitchen at 7, still in her pajamas, her thin hair sticking up at odd angles. She climbed onto Ethan's lap without a word, burrowing into his chest the way she used to when she was smaller, before the illness made her too tired for much physical affection. Is today the day? She asked, her voice muffled against his shirt. Ethan's arms tightened around her. Yeah, baby, today's the day. Are you scared? The question surprised him. Maya rarely asked about his feelings directly. She was usually so focused on being brave herself, on not making things harder for him than they already were. A little, he admitted, but I'm also hopeful. More hopeful than I've been in a long time. Because of the lady? Miss Vale? Yeah, because of her. Maya pulled back enough to look at him, her brown eyes serious. She's different from the other grown-ups we've talked to. She looks at me like I'm a real person, not just a sick kid. Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. You are a real person, Maya. You've always been a real person. I know that, but lots of adults forget. She slid off his lap. I'm going to get dressed, in case we have to go somewhere important. She disappeared into her room, and Ethan sat alone in his kitchen, thinking about how much wisdom his 8-year-old daughter had accumulated through sheer necessity. How she'd learned to read the subtle differences in how people treated her, the doctors who saw a patient number, the teachers who saw a liability, the rare few who actually saw Maya herself. The doorbell rang at exactly 7:30. Arden stood on his porch in dark jeans and a cream-colored sweater, her hair down instead of pulled back, looking somehow both more approachable and more beautiful than she had yesterday. She carried 2 coffee cups in a carrier and a white bakery box. Good morning, she said, and there were shadows under her eyes that suggested she'd slept about as well as Ethan had. Morning, come in. She set the coffee and donuts on his kitchen table just as Maya emerged from her room, wearing her favorite purple dress and the sparkly sneakers she saved for special occasions. You came back, Maya said, her whole face lighting up. I told you I would. Arden opened the bakery box, revealing an assortment of donuts that definitely hadn't come from any chain store. I wasn't sure what kind you liked, so I got several options. Maya's eyes went wide. Are these from Sweet Boulevard, the fancy place downtown? You know it? My friend Emma had her birthday party near there once, and her mom got donuts, and they were the best thing I ever ate in my whole life. Maya looked at Ethan. Can I have one? After breakfast, Ethan started, but Arden cut him off. Before breakfast, she said firmly. Today's a special day. Special days have different rules. Maya looked between them, clearly trying to figure out if this was a trap. When neither adult contradicted the statement, she carefully selected a chocolate donut with sprinkles and took a bite that left frosting on her nose. Ethan accepted one of the coffee cups from Arden. It was from an actual coffee shop, not the drive-through kind, and tasted like something he couldn't afford on his best day. Thank you, he said quietly, for all of this. The board meeting went well, Arden said, keeping her voice low while Maya was distracted by her donut. Gavin's been suspended pending a full investigation into his conduct. We found evidence of at least 7 other applications he'd blocked over the past 6 months, all while slots remained open. The board was unanimous in their decision to remove him. What happens to him? That depends on what the investigation uncovers, but he won't be involved in patient care decisions ever again. I made sure of that. Maya finished her donut and immediately started eyeing a second one. Arden pushed the box toward her without comment. Ms. Vale, Maya said through a mouthful of maple bar. Do you have kids? The question landed like a bomb in the middle of the kitchen. Arden's expression didn't change, but Ethan saw her hands tighten around her coffee cup. No, I don't. Do you want kids? Maya, Ethan said, mortified. That's a personal question. It's okay, Arden said, though her voice had gone carefully neutral. I used to think I might want children someday, but my work takes up most of my time, and it's hard to imagine fitting anything else into that equation. Maya considered this seriously. My dad works a lot too, but he always has time for me. Maybe you just need the right kid. Something flickered across Arden's face, pain or longing or some complicated mixture of both. Maybe so. They finished breakfast in a strange, comfortable silence. The three of them sitting around Ethan's second-hand kitchen table like this was normal, like powerful CEOs dropped by with fancy donuts every morning. Maya chattered between bites about a science project coming up at school, and Arden asked genuine questions about what Maya was planning to build, and Ethan watched them interact and felt the ground shifting under his feet in ways that had nothing to do with the hearing. At 9 o'clock, Ethan's phone alarm went off, the reminder to give Maya her morning medications. He pulled out the pill organizer he'd prepared the night before, the careful arrangement of antibiotics and supplements and prophylactic treatments that formed the scaffolding keeping his daughter alive. Maya took them without complaint, practiced in the routine. Arden watched the process with an intensity that made Ethan self-conscious. 17 pills, she said quietly, after Maya had swallowed the last one. Twice a day, Ethan confirmed, plus the weekly IVIG infusion, though that's getting less effective. If she's admitted to the trial, the medication regimen will change significantly. The experimental treatment protocol is intense. 3 infusions per week for the first month, then weekly maintenance doses. There are potential side effects: fatigue, nausea, headaches, temporary fever. Ethan looked at his daughter, who was building a tower out of the donut box, oblivious to the adult conversation happening around her. Will it hurt? Some, Arden admitted, but less than dying. And if it works the way it's supposed to, within 6 months her body should start producing functional antibodies on its own. She could live a normal life, go to regular school, play sports, go to birthday parties without worrying about exposure to infections. A normal life, Ethan repeated, the words foreign in his mouth. He'd stopped imagining that possibility months ago, when it became clear the standard treatments were failing. The hearing's at 2, Arden said, checking her phone. I'm going into the office for a few hours to handle some damage control from last night's board meeting, but I'll meet you there. Dr. Chen and Dr. Williams are both good doctors who genuinely care about their patients. Without Gavin interfering, Maya's case will be judged on its actual medical merits. And if they still say no? Arden's jaw set in a hard line. They won't. She left shortly after, but the bakery box and fancy coffee cups remained on the table, evidence that the morning hadn't been a dream. Ethan spent the rest of the morning trying to work. He had a logo design due for a client, but mostly he just stared at his computer screen and watched the clock. Maya seemed to sense his anxiety. She was quieter than usual, staying close, asking to help with small tasks that didn't really need helping. At noon, Ethan made them both lunch that neither of them ate. "Daddy," Maya said, pushing her sandwich around her plate. "What happens if they say yes?" "Then you start treatment," Ethan said. "You get to be in the trial that might help you get better." "And what happens if they say no?" Ethan's throat closed. "We'll figure something else out." "There isn't anything else, though, is there?" She was 8 years old and she already understood mortality in a way no child should have to. It broke something in Ethan every time he saw that knowledge in her eyes. "There's always something else," he lied. "Always." Maya nodded, but they both knew the truth. They left for Helix Biosciences at 1:15, giving themselves plenty of time to navigate downtown San Diego traffic. The headquarters was a gleaming glass and steel building in the biotech district, the kind of place that screamed money and innovation and futures being built. Ethan had been here once before, the day he desperately tried to hand-deliver Maya's application to anyone who would listen. Security had escorted him out within 15 minutes. Today, they walked through the front entrance together, and the security guard at the desk looked at his list and said, "Mr. Cole and Maya Cole, here for the 2 o'clock hearing?" "Yes," Ethan managed. "Conference room B on the 3rd floor. Ms. Vale asked that you be brought up immediately. I'll have someone escort you." They rode the elevator in silence, Maya's small hand gripping Ethan's tightly. The 3rd floor opened onto a corridor of glass-walled conference rooms and modern office spaces. Their escort led them to a room at the end of the hall where Arden was already waiting, along with 2 other people Ethan recognized from the research he'd done. Dr. Sarah Chen was a petite Asian woman in her 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and a kind face. Dr. Marcus Williams was a tall black man, probably in his early 40s, with the calm demeanor of someone who'd spent years working with sick children. They both stood when Ethan and Maya entered. "Mr. Cole," Dr. Chen said, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming, and you must be Maya." Maya nodded shyly, pressing against Ethan's side. "Why don't we all sit down?" Dr. Williams suggested, gesturing to the conference table. They arranged themselves around the table, Ethan and Maya on one side, the two doctors across from them, Arden at the head like she was chairing a board meeting. Someone had set out water bottles and notepads, the standard trappings of professional meetings. But there was nothing standard about this. Dr. Chen opened a folder, Maya's medical file, Ethan realized. "I want to start by apologizing to you both," she said. "Ms. Vale informed us this morning about the circumstances surrounding your previous application denials. What happened to you was unconscionable, and I'm deeply sorry you were put through that." "It wasn't your fault," Ethan said automatically. "It was our program's fault," Dr. Williams said firmly. "Our responsibility. We should have caught the irregularities in the approval process. We didn't, and that failure is on us." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. In his experience, institutions didn't apologize. They deflected, blamed procedural errors, hid behind bureaucracy. He glanced at Arden, who gave him a tiny nod of encouragement. "Thank you," he said finally. "That means more than you know." Dr. Chen adjusted her glasses and looked at the file in front of her. "I've reviewed Maya's complete medical history. Her diagnosis of common variable immunodeficiency is clear and well documented. Her current treatment plan with IVIG is losing effectiveness, as evidenced by the increasing frequency and severity of infections over the past 12 months. She's had 6 hospital admissions this year alone." 7, Maya said quietly. "They took me to the hospital last week, but we left before they could admit me because Daddy said we couldn't afford another stay." Ethan felt his face burn with shame. He'd gambled that time, treating her at home with oral antibiotics and hoping it would be enough. It had worked, barely, but it could have gone catastrophically wrong. Dr. Williams's expression was gentle. "That must have been scary." "I'm used to scary," Maya said with heartbreaking matter-of-factness. Dr. Chen and Dr. Williams exchanged a look that Ethan couldn't quite interpret. Then Dr. Chen turned to Maya directly. "Maya, I'd like to ask you some questions. Not medical questions, just regular questions about you. Is that okay?" Maya glanced at Ethan, who nodded. "Okay. What's your favorite subject in school?" "Science. We're learning about space right now, and it's really cool. If you could do anything you wanted, anything at all, no limits, what would you do?" Maya thought about this seriously. "I'd go to the beach, not just visit. I'd spend the whole day there. Build sandcastles and look for shells and go in the water without worrying about getting sick from the ocean germs." "That sounds wonderful," Dr. Williams said. "What else?" "I'd have a sleepover with my friends from school. I've never gotten to do that because my dad worries about exposure to infections in other people's houses. And I'd try out for soccer. Miss Peterson says I'd be good at it because I'm fast when I'm not too tired." Maya's voice grew softer. "I'd just do normal kid stuff. That's all I really want." The room had gone very quiet. Ethan felt Arden's eyes on him but couldn't bring himself to look at her. He was too busy trying not to break down in front of everyone. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. "Maya, would you mind sitting with Ms. Vale for a few minutes while we talk to your dad about some boring medical details?" "Okay." Maya slid out of her chair and went to sit next to Arden, who immediately pulled out her phone and showed Maya something that made her giggle. Dr. Williams waited until they were absorbed in whatever was on the screen, then leaned forward. "Mr. Cole, I'm going to be very direct with you. Your daughter is an ideal candidate for this trial. She meets every single criterion we've established. Her prognosis without intervention is poor. We're looking at continued immune deterioration, increasing infection frequency, and eventual organ failure from repeated septic episodes. The standard timeline for a case like hers is 18 months to 3 years. The words hit Ethan like physical blows, even though he already knew all this. Hearing it stated so clinically made it real in a way he'd been able to avoid. However, Dr. Chen continued, The experimental protocol we're using has shown significant promise. In our current cohort of 47 participants, we've seen immune function improvement in 83% of cases. Complete remission, meaning the patient's body begins producing functional antibodies on its own, has occurred in 41%. Even in cases where we don't achieve complete remission, patients show marked improvement in quality of life and infection resistance. What about the other 17%? Ethan asked. The ones who don't improve? Some show no significant change in immune function but tolerate the treatment without major complications. A small number, approximately 6%, have had adverse reactions that required them to withdraw from the trial. Dr. Williams' expression was serious. I won't lie to you, this is an experimental treatment. There are risks, but the alternative is watching Maya's condition continue to deteriorate. What kind of adverse reactions? The most common are manageable: nausea, fatigue, headaches, temporary fever. Those occur in about 60% of participants and typically resolve within the first month as the body adjusts. More serious reactions include severe allergic responses, which we monitor for very carefully during infusions. One participant developed a secondary autoimmune condition that required additional treatment but is now stable. The most serious complication we've seen was kidney stress in a patient with underlying renal insufficiency, which Maya doesn't have. Ethan processed this information, weighing risks he had no real ability to evaluate. What did he know about experimental immunology treatments? He was a graphic designer who Googled medical terms and tried to understand journal articles written for people with advanced degrees. If it works, he said slowly, if Maya is one of the success cases, what does that look like? Dr. Chen's expression softened. It looks like a little girl who goes to sleepovers, who tries out for soccer, who goes to the beach for an entire day without her father worrying himself sick about infections. It looks like a normal childhood. And if we don't do the trial, then we continue with the current treatment plan until it stops working entirely, Dr. Williams said quietly, and hope we can manage the infections as they come. Hope. As if hope had ever been enough against an immune system that was slowly forgetting how to protect itself. Ethan looked across the room to where Maya was still absorbed in whatever Arden was showing her. His daughter. His entire world. The person he'd sacrifice anything to save. What do I need to sign? He asked. The relief on both doctors' faces was palpable. Dr. Chen pulled out a stack of paperwork. There's quite a bit of consent documentation. We need to make sure you understand the full scope of the treatment, the potential risks, the monitoring requirements. The first month is the most intensive. Maya would need to come in for infusions 3 times per week, and we'd run blood work before and after each session to track her response. 3 times per week. Ethan tried to calculate how that would work with his freelance schedule, with Maya's school attendance, with everything else. How long are the sessions? 2 to 3 hours per infusion. Most families find it easiest to schedule them in the late afternoon so the child doesn't miss a full school day. I can make that work. He'd have to make it work. There wasn't another option. They spent the next 40 minutes going through paperwork. Ethan signed consent forms and treatment agreements and liability waivers, his hand cramping from writing his name so many times. Dr. Chen explained the monitoring protocols, the schedule for the first month, the signs of adverse reactions to watch for. Dr. Williams walked him through the medication regimen changes, which drugs Maya would stop taking and which new ones would be added. Arden and Maya rejoined them as they were finishing up. All set? Arden asked. All set, Dr. Chen confirmed. Maya, how would you feel about starting your first treatment this Friday? Maya's eyes went wide. This Friday? Like 3 days from now? If that works for your schedule, we'd like to get started as soon as possible. Maya looked at Ethan, and he saw hope warring with fear in her expression. She'd been disappointed so many times. Been told yes only to have it turn into no. Been promised treatments that didn't work. It's real this time, Ethan said softly. I promise. Ms. Vale promised too, Maya said, looking at Arden. She said she keeps her promises. Always, Arden confirmed. Maya took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and nodded with all the gravity of an 8-year-old making a life-altering decision. Okay, Friday works. The meeting wrapped up shortly after. Dr. Chen and Dr. Williams both shook Maya's hand like she was an equal partner in this arrangement, which she was. They gave Ethan folders full of information to review and multiple phone numbers to call if any questions came up. Arden walked them down to the lobby, her heels clicking against the polished floor. In the elevator, Maya was uncharacteristically quiet, processing everything that had just happened. "You okay, baby?" Ethan asked. "I'm scared," Maya admitted, "but also happy. Is that weird?" "Not weird at all," Arden said. "It's okay to feel both things at the same time." They reached the ground floor, and Ethan expected Arden to say goodbye and head back up to her office. Instead, she walked them all the way out to the parking lot. "Thank you," Ethan said when they reached his car. "For everything. I don't even know how to—" "Don't," Arden interrupted. "This is what should have happened from the beginning. You don't thank someone for doing the bare minimum of human decency. It wasn't the bare minimum. You went to war for us." Something flickered in Arden's expression. "Your daughter deserves to live, Ethan. That shouldn't be a controversial position." Maya tugged on Arden's sleeve. "Are you going to come with us on Friday for the treatment?" Arden hesitated, and Ethan could see her calculating commitments and schedules and all the important CEO things she probably had to do. "I have a meeting with the board that afternoon, but I'll try to—" "Please," Maya interrupted. "It would be less scary if you were there." And just like that, Arden's careful professional distance crumbled completely. She crouched down to Maya's level, her expensive suit wrinkling against the parking lot asphalt. "Then I'll be there," she said. "The board can wait." Maya threw her arms around Arden's neck in an impulsive hug that clearly surprised both of them. Arden froze for a second, then her arms came up to hold Maya carefully, like she was afraid of breaking something precious. When Maya finally pulled back, there was something bright and fierce in Arden's eyes that made Ethan's chest ache. They drove home in afternoon traffic, Maya chattering about everything and nothing, the nervous energy pouring out of her in streams of questions and observations. Ethan let her talk, responding when she needed him to, but mostly just listening to the sound of his daughter being excited about a future that might actually exist now. His phone buzzed when they were stopped at a red light. "Your daughter is extraordinary." Ethan smiled and typed back one-handed. "I know." "Friday at 3 o'clock. I meant what I said. I'll be there." "You don't have to disrupt your entire schedule for us." "I'm not doing it for you." Ethan looked at the message for a long moment, at the implication hiding between the words. Then he put his phone away and focused on getting his daughter home. That night, after Maya was asleep, Ethan sat in his living room with the folders Dr. Chen had given him and actually read through the treatment documentation. The medical terminology was dense, the risk disclosures sobering, the commitment required substantial. 3 times per week for the first month. Weekly maintenance doses after that for at least 6 months. Blood draws and monitoring and potential complications. But also possibility. The chance that Maya might get to have the normal life she'd described in that conference room. Soccer tryouts and sleepovers and whole days at the beach. His phone rang at 10:30. Unknown number, but something made him answer anyway. "Hello?" "It's Arden." Her voice sounded tired. "I hope I'm not calling too late." "No, I'm still up, reading through the treatment information." "How are you feeling about it?" Ethan leaned back against his couch. Terrified, hopeful, grateful, all of it simultaneously. "That sounds about right." There was a pause, then, "I wanted you to know that I've instructed our billing department to work with you on the cost structure for Maya's treatment. The trial itself is free, but there are associated expenses, lab work, monitoring, medications. We have assistance programs specifically for situations like yours." "Arden, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm telling you that my company has resources specifically allocated for ensuring that financial barriers don't prevent eligible patients from receiving treatment. Maya qualifies for maximum assistance." "This feels like charity." "It's not charity. It's what my company was supposed to be doing all along before my ex-husband decided to play games with people's lives." Her voice hardened. "Let me do this, Ethan. Please." He thought about his credit card debt and his bankruptcy filing and the medical bills stacked on his kitchen counter. Thought about the pride that had been beaten out of him over 4 years of watching his daughter suffer. "Okay," he said quietly. "Thank you." "Friday," Arden said. "I'll see you both Friday." She hung up before he could respond. Ethan sat in the dark for a long time after, thinking about wrong numbers and second chances, and how one accidental text message had somehow become the thing that saved them. Thinking about a woman who'd built an empire to honor her dead sister, and was now personally ensuring that another little girl got the chance to live. Friday couldn't come fast enough. Friday arrived wrapped in morning fog that clung to the windows of Ethan's rental house like something trying to get in. He'd been awake since 4, unable to sleep, running through worst-case scenarios his brain refused to stop generating. What if Maya had an allergic reaction? What if her body rejected the treatment? What if this experimental protocol that had worked for 83% of participants failed her specifically because that's how their luck ran? Maya found him in the kitchen at 6, already dressed in her favorite purple outfit even though they didn't need to leave for hours. "Couldn't sleep either?" Ethan asked. She shook her head and climbed into his lap, something she rarely did anymore. "My stomach feels weird." Nervous weird or sick weird? Both, maybe. She was quiet for a moment, then, "Daddy, what if it doesn't work?" Ethan tightened his arms around her. "Then we try something else. We keep trying until something does work." "But doctor, Chen said there isn't really anything else." God, he hated how much she understood. How this disease had stolen not just her health, but her childhood innocence, replacing it with medical literacy no 8-year-old should possess. "Then we make the trial work," he said firmly. "We show up, we do exactly what the doctors tell us to do, and we give your body every possible chance to heal itself." "Okay." Maya's voice was small against his chest. "I'm trying to be brave." "You're the bravest person I know, baby. You don't have to try." They spent the morning in careful distraction. Ethan made chocolate chip pancakes, and Maya helped even though her coordination was off from nerves, and she spilled batter on the counter. They watched 2 episodes of her favorite show, the one about the girl who could talk to animals. Ethan pretended to work while actually just refreshing his email every 30 seconds, checking for some last-minute cancellation notice that never came. At noon, his phone rang. Arden. "Hey," he answered. "I'm wrapping up early," she said without preamble. "I'll meet you at the treatment center at 2:30 instead of 3. I want to be there before Maya arrives." "You really don't have to, Ethan." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Let me do this, please." He thought about Maya asking if Arden would be there, about how his daughter's face had lit up when Arden promised she would. "Okay, we'll see you at 2:30. The Helix Biosciences Treatment Center was in a different building from the main headquarters, a low-slung structure designed to feel less clinical and more welcoming. The waiting room had comfortable chairs and warm lighting and an aquarium built into one wall where tropical fish drifted in lazy circles. Children's artwork covered the walls, drawings and paintings from current and former trial participants, messages of hope and survival rendered in crayon and watercolor. Arden was already there when they arrived, standing near the aquarium in dark jeans and a soft blue sweater that made her look younger somehow, more approachable. She smiled when she saw Maya, a real smile that transformed her whole face. "Right on time," she said. Maya ran to her, and Arden caught her in a hug that looked increasingly natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. "I'm scared," Maya whispered, loud enough for Ethan to hear. "I know," Arden said. "That's okay. Brave people are scared too. They just don't let the fear stop them." A nurse appeared from a side hallway, young and cheerful with purple scrubs and a name tag that read Jessica. Ethan felt a hysterical laugh bubble up at the coincidence, the name that had started all of this, showing up again now. "Maya Cole?" the nurse asked. "That's me." Maya's hand found Ethan's and gripped tight. "Great, let's get you checked in and see where we're starting from today. Are both parents coming back with you?" There was a beat of awkward silence. Arden started to correct the assumption, but Maya spoke first. "Yes, all of us are coming." The nurse smiled. "Perfect, follow me." They were led to a treatment room that looked more like a comfortable living room than a medical facility. A large recliner sat in the center, surrounded by monitoring equipment that someone had clearly tried to make less intimidating with colorful stickers. A TV mounted on one wall showed a menu of kid-friendly movies. Windows along the far side looked out onto a small garden where hummingbirds darted between flowers. "This is nice," Maya said, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "We try to make it as comfortable as possible," Jessica said. "You'll be here for a few hours, so we want you to feel relaxed. Why don't you get settled in the chair while I grab Dr. Williams? He wants to talk to you before we start the infusion." Maya climbed into the recliner, and Jessica adjusted it so her feet weren't dangling. Ethan took the chair on one side of her while Arden settled on the other. The three of them arranged like this was normal, like they were a family unit instead of two people and a stranger who'd accidentally wandered into their crisis. Dr. Williams arrived a few minutes later with a tablet and a reassuring smile. "Hello, Maya. How are you feeling today?" "Nervous," Maya admitted. "That's completely understandable. This is a big step." He pulled up a chair so he was at eye level with her. "I want to explain exactly what's going to happen today, so there are no surprises. Is that okay?" Maya nodded. "First, Nurse Jessica is going to put in an IV. That's going to be the hardest part. It'll feel like a pinch and it might sting a little. But once it's in, you won't feel it anymore. Then we're going to give you the medicine through the IV. It's going to take about 2.5 hours. During that time, you might feel a little tired or get a headache, but those are normal reactions. We'll be checking on you every 15 minutes to make sure you're doing okay. Does that make sense?" "Will it hurt?" Maya asked. "The medicine, I mean, not just the needle." Dr. Williams considered this seriously. "Some kids say they don't feel anything at all. Some say they get a weird taste in their mouth or feel a little warm. Everyone's different. But if anything feels really wrong or really uncomfortable, you tell us immediately and we can slow down the infusion or take a break. You're in charge of your own body, Maya. We don't do anything you're not okay with." Something in Maya's expression relaxed at that, the acknowledgement that she had agency, that this wasn't just something being done to her. "Okay," she said. "I'm ready." Jessica returned with the IV supplies, and Ethan felt his own stomach clench. He'd watched Maya get stuck with needles hundreds of times, blood draws, IV placements, immunoglobulin infusions. It never got easier. "I'm going to use some numbing spray first," Jessica said, showing Maya the small canister. "It's going to feel cold, but it'll make the needle hurt less. Which hand do you want to use?" Maya held out her left hand, and Jessica sprayed the numbing agent over the vein in the back of her hand. While they waited for it to take effect, Arden caught Ethan's eye and gave him a look that clearly said, "Breathe." He tried. Jessica worked quickly and efficiently, talking Maya through each step. The needle went in clean on the first try, and Maya only flinched slightly. Within minutes, the IV was secured and Jessica was programming the infusion pump. "All set," she said. "I'll be back in 15 minutes to check on you. If you need anything before then, just press this call button." She left, and suddenly it was just the three of them, and the quiet hum of the infusion pump measuring out hope in milliliters per hour. "What do you want to watch?" Arden asked, picking up the TV remote. Maya considered the options scrolling across the screen. "Can we watch something you like, instead of kid stuff?" Arden looked surprised. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I want to know what kind of shows you watch." Something soft crossed Arden's face. She scrolled through the options and selected a nature documentary about ocean life. "I like these. They're calming." They settled in to watch footage of sea turtles gliding through coral reefs while the medicine dripped slowly into Maya's bloodstream. Ethan found himself watching his daughter more than the screen, cataloging every expression, every shift in her breathing, searching for signs of distress. 15 minutes passed. Jessica returned, checked Maya's vitals, confirmed everything looked good, and disappeared again. "How do you feel?" Ethan asked. "Okay, I think. A little weird, like I can taste metal." "That's normal," Arden said. "It should fade in a few minutes." "How do you know?" Arden was quiet for a moment. "I used to come to my sister's treatments. Different medicine, but some of the side effects were similar. She used to say the metallic taste made her feel like a robot." Maya giggled at that. Then her expression grew serious. "Did the medicine help her?" "No," Arden said softly. "The treatments we had back then weren't very good. But the ones we have now are so much better. That's why I built this company, to make sure other kids had options my sister didn't have. I'm sorry she died, Maya said with the blunt empathy of childhood. Me too. But I think she'd be happy knowing that her story helped create something that could save other kids, that her life mattered in that way. Maya thought about this while the documentary showed footage of dolphins hunting in coordinated pods. Do you think if she could see you now, she'd be proud? Arden's breath caught audibly. Ethan watched emotions flicker across her face, too fast to name before she got them under control. I hope so, Arden said finally. I really hope so. They fell into comfortable silence after that, the kind that felt natural instead of awkward. Maya drifted in and out of light sleep, her body relaxing into the treatment. Ethan found himself relaxing too, the constant vigilance that had defined his existence for 4 years easing just slightly. At some point, Arden's hand found his on the armrest between their chairs. She didn't say anything, just laced her fingers through his and held on. Ethan stared at their joined hands, at this small gesture of solidarity from a woman who had every reason to keep her distance, and felt something crack open in his chest. Jessica returned for her second check-in, smiling at the sight of Maya dozing peacefully. Vitals look great. She's tolerating the treatment really well. We're about halfway through. Another hour passed. The documentary ended and Arden queued up another one, this time about wolves in Yellowstone. Maya woke up and watched for a while, asking questions about pack behavior that Arden answered with surprising knowledge. You know a lot about wolves, Maya observed. I read a lot, Arden said. When you spend most of your time in boardrooms and laboratories, you start craving information about the natural world. Do you ever get to go outside? Like, for fun? Arden smiled ruefully. Not as much as I should. You should come to the beach with us sometime, when I'm allowed to go. Daddy says maybe next summer if the trial works. I'd like that, Arden said, and sounded like she meant it. The infusion finished at 5:43, nearly 3 hours after it had started. Dr. Williams came in personally to oversee Maya's post-treatment vitals and examination. How do you feel? He asked. Tired, Maya said, and my head hurts a little, but not too bad. That's very normal. The fatigue and headache should improve over the next few hours. Make sure you drink plenty of water tonight and get extra rest. No school tomorrow. Give your body time to adjust. Okay. Maya yawned, proving his point about the fatigue. Jessica removed the IV carefully, placing a small bandage decorated with cartoon stars over the insertion site. Maya stared at it like it was a badge of honor. First treatment down, Jessica said cheerfully. You did great, Maya. They collected the post-treatment instruction sheets and scheduled the next session for Monday afternoon. Dr. Williams walked them out to the lobby, answering Ethan's anxious questions about warning signs and when to call if something seemed wrong. You have my direct number, he reminded Ethan. Call any time if you're worried. But honestly, she handled that better than most kids do on their first infusion. I think she's going to do really well with this protocol. In the parking lot, the early evening air was cool against Ethan's face. Maya leaned heavily against his side, exhausted from the treatment and the stress of the day. Thank you for being here, Ethan said to Arden. It meant a lot. To both of us. I meant what I said. I wanted to be here. Arden crouched down to Maya's level. You were incredibly brave today. Will you come to the next one too? Maya asked. Ethan started to intervene. She couldn't expect Arden to rearrange her schedule twice a week for a child she barely knew, but Arden answered before he could. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next month, right? I'll be at every single one. You have a company to run, Ethan protested weakly. I have a company that exists to help patients like Maya. Being present for her treatment is exactly what I should be doing. Arden stood, and there was something fierce and determined in her expression. Besides, the board can function without me for a few hours, 3 times a week. They've been doing it for years. Maya smiled, her exhaustion lifting slightly. Okay, I'll see you Monday then. They said their goodbyes, and Ethan got Maya buckled into the car. She was asleep before they left the parking lot, her small face peaceful in a way it hadn't been in months. Ethan drove home carefully, taking the turns slowly, protecting his precious cargo. His phone buzzed at a red light. He glanced at it and saw a message from Arden. "She's going to make it. I can feel it." Ethan wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that this treatment would be the thing that finally worked, that they'd be part of the 83% instead of the 17% who didn't respond. But hope was dangerous when you'd been disappointed so many times. Still, he typed back, "Thank you for today, for all of it." "It was my honor." At home, Ethan carried Maya inside and tucked her into bed, still wearing her purple dress because she was too tired to change. He sat on the edge of her mattress for a long time, watching her breathe, counting each inhale and exhale like they were precious coins he needed to keep track of. "We're going to make it," he whispered to her sleeping form. "You're going to make it." He almost believed it. The weekend passed in a blur of rest and recovery. Maya slept more than usual, her body processing the new medicine. The headache faded by Saturday afternoon, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion that kept her on the couch watching movies. Ethan hovered, checking her temperature every few hours, making her drink water and eat small meals, watching for any sign that something was going wrong. Nothing did. By Sunday evening, Maya actually had more energy than she'd shown in weeks. She wanted to help make dinner, chattering about the nature documentaries they'd watched during the infusion, asking if they could learn more about wolves. "We can go to the library this week," Ethan promised, "get some books about wildlife." "Can we invite Ms. Vale?" Maya asked, stirring the pasta sauce with intense concentration. "She knows a lot about animals. She could help us pick good books." Ethan's hand stilled on the pot he was draining. "Maya, I know you like her, but we can't take up all her time. She's a very busy person." "But she said she wanted to spend time with us. She said she'd come to all my treatments." "That's different. That's about your medical care." Maya looked up at him with those two wise eyes. "I think she's lonely, Daddy, like how you get lonely sometimes, even though you don't say it." The observation hit harder than it should have. "What makes you think I get lonely?" "Because sometimes at night I hear you talking on the phone to Grandma, and you tell her you're fine, but your voice sounds sad. And because you signed up for that dating app, even though you're scared nobody will want to date someone with a sick kid." Ethan set down the colander, his hands suddenly unsteady. "Maya, it's okay to be lonely," Maya continued matter-of-factly. "I get lonely too sometimes. Even though I have you and you're the best dad in the whole world, sometimes I wish I had more people. Like maybe a mom who didn't leave, or brothers and sisters, or just more family in general. And I think Ms. Vale wishes she had more people too. I can tell by the way she looks at us." "How does she look at us?" "Like we're something she wants but doesn't think she can have." The wisdom in that statement, the emotional intelligence in his 8-year-old daughter, left Ethan speechless. He pulled Maya into a hug, holding her tight against his chest. "When did you get so smart?" he asked. "I've always been smart. You just don't notice because you're busy worrying about keeping me alive." Ethan laughed despite himself, the sound cracking around the edges. "Fair point." They finished making dinner together, and Ethan let Maya stay up an extra hour past bedtime because she had the energy for it, and because he was selfishly grateful for every moment she was awake and present, and his. Monday's treatment went even better than Friday's. Maya knew what to expect this time, and the anticipation was less frightening than the unknown had been. Arden showed up at 2:30 on the dot, carrying a bag from the library. "I thought you might like these," she said, pulling out 3 books about wolves and wildlife. "I stopped by on my lunch break." Maya's face lit up like Arden had brought her the moon itself. "You remembered." "Of course I remembered." They settled into what was becoming a routine. Maya in the recliner, Ethan and Arden on either side, Jessica placing the IV with practiced efficiency. This time Maya only flinched a little at the needle stick, already adjusting to the process. During the infusion, Arden read aloud from one of the wolf books, her voice steady and soothing. Maya listened with rapt attention, asking questions that Arden answered with the same seriousness she probably brought to board meetings. Ethan watched them together and understood what Maya had meant about Arden looking at them like something she wanted but couldn't have. There was a hunger in Arden's expression when she interacted with Maya, something raw and aching that she tried to hide but couldn't quite manage. Halfway through the treatment, Maya fell asleep mid-sentence, exhausted by the medicine. Arden kept reading anyway, her voice dropping to a whisper, and Ethan realized she was doing it as much for herself as for Maya. "Thank you," he said quietly. Arden looked up from the book. "For what?" "For being here. For caring about her. You didn't have to do any of this." "Yes, I did." Arden set the book aside. "The moment I read her file and realized what Gavin had done, there was no other option. And the moment I met her—" She stopped, her throat working. "She reminds me of Lily, not in appearance, but in spirit. That determination to be brave even when everything is terrifying, that ability to find joy in small things despite everything trying to crush it. Lily was like that too." "Tell me about her," Ethan said. "If you want to." Arden was quiet for a long moment, her eyes on Maya's sleeping face. Then, slowly, she started talking. "Lily was 7 years younger than me. By the time she was born, I was already the serious, responsible older sister. I took that role very seriously, probably too seriously. I helped take care of her, made sure she did her homework, protected her from bullies at school. When she got sick, I tried to protect her from that too. Obviously, I couldn't." "How old were you when she died?" 16. She was 9. It was pneumonia in the end. Her body just couldn't fight it anymore. We knew it was coming. The doctors had prepared us. But knowing doesn't make it hurt less. Ethan thought about what that must have been like, being 16 and watching your little sister die slowly. How it must have shaped every decision Arden made afterward. "Is that why you never had kids?" he asked. "Because you were afraid of losing them?" Arden's smile was sad. "Partly. Also because by the time I built Helix Biosciences into something stable, I was 35 and completely consumed by work. And then I married Gavin, which turned out to be a disaster for multiple reasons. He didn't want children, said they would interfere with our careers. I told myself I was okay with that my work was enough. Was it? No." The admission seemed to surprise even Arden. It turns out building a pharmaceutical empire doesn't actually fill the hole that losing your sister creates. Who knew? "I'm sorry," Ethan said. "Don't be. I made my choices. I don't regret the company or the work we've done. But sitting here with you and Maya, seeing what you have together despite everything you're fighting against—" She stopped, collecting herself. "It makes me realize what I've been missing." Before Ethan could respond, Maya stirred in the recliner, her eyes fluttering open. "Did I fall asleep?" "Just for a little while," Arden said, her professional mask sliding back into place so smoothly that Ethan almost doubted the vulnerability he'd just witnessed. "We're about 3/4 done. How do you feel?" "Okay, still tired. Can we finish the Wolf book?" "Absolutely." Arden picked up where she'd left off, and Ethan sat back and listened to her voice weave stories about pack dynamics and hunting strategies while medicine designed to rebuild his daughter's immune system flowed steadily into her veins. Wednesday's treatment followed the same pattern. Fridays, too. By the end of the first week, Maya was navigating the infusions like a veteran, barely flinching at the IV placement, settling into the recliner with the confidence of familiarity. And Arden showed up to every single one. She rearranged meetings and postponed conference calls and told her executive assistant that 3 afternoons a week were now blocked off as unavailable. When board members questioned her priorities, she shut them down with the kind of authority that had built a multi-billion-dollar company. "Patient care is our mission," Ethan overheard her say during a phone call she took in the hallway during Maya's 5th treatment. "If you have a problem with the CEO occasionally remembering that, we can discuss your continued board membership." The conversation ended shortly after. By the end of the 2nd week, something had shifted between the 3 of them. The careful professional distance Arden had tried to maintain had eroded completely, replaced by something that looked suspiciously like family. She knew how Maya liked her snacks during treatments. She brought books that matched Maya's interests. She remembered which nurses Maya liked best and requested them specifically. And with Ethan, the boundaries had blurred in ways neither of them seemed able to stop. Hands that found each other during tense moments, conversations that went deeper than they should, looks that lingered too long to be accidental. After Maya's 6th treatment, Arden walked them to the car as usual. Maya was already buckled in, drowsy and content, leaving Ethan and Arden standing in the parking lot with the late afternoon sun turning everything golden. "I have a question," Arden said abruptly, "and you can absolutely say no." "Okay." Maya mentioned wanting to go to the beach. "I have a house in La Jolla with private beach access. If she's feeling up to it this weekend, maybe you both could come out. No big gathering, no pressure, just a quiet day at the beach like she's been dreaming about." Ethan stared at her. "You're inviting us to your beach house?" "Yes." "Is that weird?" "It feels weird saying it out loud." "It's not weird. It's incredibly generous. But Arden, you've already done so much." "I want to," Arden interrupted. "I want to see her build sandcastles and hunt for shells and just be a normal kid for a day. And selfishly, I want to be part of that. If you'll let me." The vulnerability in her voice undid something in Ethan's chest. "Sunday?" he offered. "If Maya's energy holds." Arden's smile could have lit up the whole parking lot. "Sunday. I'll text you the address." She left, and Ethan got in the car where Maya was already half asleep. "We're going to the beach on Sunday," he said. "Okay," Maya mumbled. "With Ms. Vale." "Yeah, baby. With Ms. Vale." "Good," Maya said, and drifted off completely. Ethan sat in his car for a long moment before starting the engine, thinking about how one wrong text message had somehow led to this, to his daughter getting treatment that might save her life, to a lonely CEO finding something she didn't know she'd lost, to the three of them building something fragile and precious that none of them quite knew how to name. He drove home through Friday evening traffic, Hope sitting in his passenger seat like an old friend finally come to visit. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of perfect California weather that seemed designed specifically for beach days. Ethan woke to sunlight streaming through his bedroom window and the sound of Maya already up, singing to herself in her room. He found her standing in front of her closet in her swimsuit, trying to decide which shorts to wear over it. "The blue ones," he said from the doorway. Maya turned, her face bright with excitement. "Do you think Miss Vale's house is really big? Emma from school went to a beach house once, and she said it had 5 bedrooms and a pool." "I don't know, baby. But remember, we're guests. Best behavior, okay?" "I always have best behavior," Maya protested, which was mostly true. She pulled on the blue shorts and her favorite t-shirt with the sea turtle on it. "Can we bring her something? Like a present?" Ethan thought about what you brought to the beach house of a billionaire CEO and came up blank. "How about we stop and get some nice pastries on the way? Everyone likes breakfast." They stopped at a French bakery Ethan normally couldn't afford. The kind of place with a line out the door and prices that made him wince. He bought an assortment of croissants and Danish pastries that cost more than his typical weekly grocery budget and tried not to think about his credit card balance. The drive to La Jolla took 40 minutes through late morning traffic. Arden had texted detailed directions to a gated community that overlooked the ocean, the kind of neighborhood where houses started at $3 million and went up from there. The guard at the gate checked Ethan's license against a list and waved them through with a professional smile. Arden's house was at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, a modern structure of glass and weathered wood that seemed to grow organically from the clifftop. The ocean stretched endlessly beyond it, glittering in the morning sun. "Whoa," Maya breathed as Ethan pulled into the driveway. "Yeah," Ethan agreed. "Whoa." Arden opened the front door before they could knock, dressed in jean shorts and a simple white linen shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. Ethan had never seen her look so relaxed, so much like a regular person instead of a corporate powerhouse. "You made it," she said, smiling at Maya. "I've been watching for your car." "We brought pastries," Maya announced, holding up the bakery box like a prize. "You didn't have to do that, but I'm certainly not going to complain. Come on in." The interior of the house was stunning in its simplicity. Clean lines, natural materials, floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the ocean view like living artwork. But what caught Ethan's attention were the small personal touches scattered throughout. Books stacked on side tables, a collection of sea glass in a bowl, framed photographs of what must be Arden's family, including one of a young girl with a bright smile who could only be Lily. Maya wandered immediately to the windows, pressing her hands against the glass. "I can see the beach. Can we go down there?" "That's why you're here," Arden said. But first, breakfast. I'm starving. They ate on the deck overlooking the ocean, the morning air cool and salt-tinged. Maya demolished 2 croissants and a chocolate Danish while peppering Arden with questions about the house, the beach, whether there were dolphins in the water sometimes. There are, Arden confirmed, and seals. There's a colony that lives on the rocks about a quarter-mile down the beach. If we're lucky, we might see some today. Can we look for them, please? Absolutely. Let me grab some beach supplies and we'll head down. Arden disappeared inside and returned with beach towels, a cooler, and an umbrella. Ethan tried to help carry things, but she waved him off. I've got a beach cart in the garage. Makes it easier. They loaded everything into a wagon designed specifically for hauling gear across sand and made their way down a wooden staircase that zigzagged down the cliff face to the private beach below. Maya counted each step out loud, making it to 107 before they reached the sand. The beach was pristine and empty, just for them. Maya kicked off her shoes the moment her feet touched sand and took off running toward the water, her laughter carried back by the ocean breeze. "Maya, wait!" Ethan called. "Let me put sunscreen on you first." She skidded to a halt at the water's edge, hopping impatiently from foot to foot, while Ethan caught up and slathered her with SPF 50. The moment he finished, she was off again, wading into the shallows and shrieking with delight when a wave caught her by surprise. Ethan stood at the edge of the water, watching his daughter play like a normal 8-year-old for the first time in longer than he could remember. No fear of germs or infections or immune system failure, just pure, uncomplicated joy. "She looks good," Arden said quietly, appearing beside him. "The treatment is working. It's only been 2 weeks. I've seen the blood work. Dr. Williams shared it with me yesterday. Her antibody levels are already starting to trend upward. It's subtle, but it's there." Ethan felt his throat tighten. Really? Really, she's responding to the protocol, Ethan. Not just tolerating it, actually responding. He wanted to cry or laugh or possibly both. Instead, he just nodded, not trusting his voice, and Arden's hand found his and squeezed gently. They spent the morning building sandcastles that Maya engineered with startling architectural ambition. She directed them like a tiny construction foreman, insisting on moats and towers, and a drawbridge made from a piece of driftwood Ethan found washed up on the shore. "It needs to be historically accurate," Maya insisted. "Real castles had strategic defensive positions." "Where did you learn about medieval castle architecture?" Arden asked, amused. "I read a lot when I'm stuck in bed being sick. History is interesting." They worked on the castle for over an hour, adding details and reinforcements, Maya narrating an elaborate story about the princess who lived there and the dragon she'd befriended who helped defend against invaders. "Not all dragons are bad," Maya explained seriously. "People just assume they are because they look scary, but maybe they're just misunderstood." "That's very wise," Arden said, and something in her voice made Ethan look up. She was watching Maya with an expression of such raw tenderness that it hurt to witness. When the castle was finally complete, Maya insisted on taking photos from every angle. Arden pulled out her phone and obliged, capturing their creation against the backdrop of the ocean. "Now one with all of us," Maya demanded. "We built it together, so we should all be in the picture." Arden set up her phone on a nearby rock, activated the timer, and hurried over to crouch beside the sandcastle with Ethan and Maya. They smiled for the camera, and in that moment, they looked exactly like what they were pretending not to be. A family. After lunch from the cooler, sandwiches Arden had prepared, along with fruit and cookies that Maya loved, they explored the shoreline. Maya found shells and sea glass, collecting treasures in a bucket Arden had brought. She discovered a tide pool teeming with tiny crabs and sea anemones, crouching beside it for 20 minutes, while Arden explained the ecosystem with the same precision she probably used in corporate presentations. "You really do know everything," Maya said admiringly. "Hardly, but I like learning about things. It makes the world feel less overwhelming when you can understand how it works." "Is that why you became a scientist?" "I'm not really a scientist anymore. I just run the company that employs scientists." "But you were one." "Before. Daddy told me you studied immunology because of your sister." Arden glanced at Ethan, surprised. He shrugged slightly, not apologetic. Maya deserved to know the truth about the woman who'd saved her life. "I did," Arden confirmed. I got my PhD in immunology from Stanford. Spent 5 years doing research before I realized I could have more impact building a company than working in a lab. Do you miss it? The science part? Arden considered this while watching a hermit crab navigate around her foot. Sometimes. There's something pure about research, asking questions and searching for answers without worrying about profit margins or shareholder value. But running Helix means I get to fund dozens of researchers asking those questions. It's a different kind of contribution. I think your sister would be proud of both, Maya said matter-of-factly. The science you did and the company you built. Because either way, you're helping people. Arden's breath caught audibly. For a moment, Ethan thought she might cry. Instead, she pulled Maya into a fierce hug that the little girl returned without hesitation. Thank you, Arden whispered against Maya's hair. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. They stayed at the beach until mid-afternoon, when Maya's energy finally started to flag. The treatments always left her more tired than usual, and today had been more physical activity than she'd managed in months. She fell asleep in the car on the drive back up to the house, her face sun-kissed and peaceful. Ethan carried her inside and settled her on Arden's couch, covering her with a soft throw blanket. She didn't even stir, completely worn out in the best possible way. Coffee? Arden offered quietly. Please. They sat on the deck with their coffee while Maya slept inside, the late afternoon sun turning the ocean gold and orange. Ethan felt pleasantly exhausted himself, the kind of tired that came from sun and salt water and watching his daughter be truly happy. Thank you for today, he said. This meant everything to her, to both of us. I should be thanking you, Arden said. I can't remember the last time I had a day like this, just being present instead of constantly thinking 3 steps ahead. You're allowed to have days like this. You're allowed to have a life outside your company. Am I? Arden's smile was rueful. I built my entire existence around Helix. It's all I've had for the past 15 years. Work and more work and occasionally sleep. Gavin used to complain that I was married to my company more than I was married to him. He wasn't entirely wrong. Is that why your marriage failed? Arden was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the ocean. Partially, but mostly it failed because we were never really compatible in the first place. I married him because he seemed stable and successful, and because I was 36 and thought I should probably have a partner, not exactly romantic. What would you do differently? If you could go back? I'd wait for someone who made me feel something real instead of settling for someone who looked good on paper. She turned to look at Ethan directly. I'd wait for someone who reminded me that there's more to life than quarterly earnings reports and FDA approvals. Someone who showed me what actual love looks like instead of just the performance of it. The weight of her words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Arden? Ethan started, but she shook her head. I know this is complicated and probably inappropriate, and you have much more important things to worry about than whatever this is becoming. But I need you to know that these past 2 weeks, being with you and Maya, have mattered to me. More than I know how to articulate. Ethan set down his coffee cup carefully. It's not inappropriate. And it's not one-sided, if that's what you're worried about. Maya asked me the other day if I thought you were lonely. She said you look at us like we're something you want but don't think you can have. Very perceptive kid. She is, and she was right, wasn't she? Arden's laugh was shaky. Completely right. I look at what you have with Maya, that unconditional love, that partnership, that sense of being a team against the world, and I want it so badly it physically hurts. I built an empire to honor my sister's memory, but I forgot to build an actual life. So build one now, Ethan said quietly. It's not too late. With you? The question was barely a whisper. If you want, if you're willing to take on a broke single dad and his chronically ill daughter and all the chaos that comes with us. Ethan, you're not broke. You're resourceful and devoted and doing everything humanly possible to keep your daughter alive. That's not something to apologize for. And Maya isn't a burden. She's extraordinary. She is, Ethan agreed. But that doesn't change the reality of our situation. I have medical debt and I work freelance from home, and my life revolves entirely around treatment schedules and doctor's appointments. That's not exactly appealing dating material. Arden shifted closer, her eyes intense. Do you want to know what I find appealing? A man who shows up for his daughter every single day without fail. Who learns medical terminology he never wanted to know because knowledge might save her life. Who sends accidental flirty texts to the wrong number and then doesn't run away when the CEO shows up on his doorstep demanding answers. That's appealing, Ethan. That's real. We've known each other for 2 weeks. I knew within 2 minutes of reading Maya's file that something was deeply wrong with how she'd been treated. I knew within 2 hours of meeting her that I'd do whatever it took to help her. Time is relative when the connection is real. Ethan wanted to argue, to point out all the logical reasons this couldn't work. But the truth was, he'd been falling for Arden since that first afternoon when she'd shown up at his house and demanded to know the truth about his daughter. Since she'd promised Maya she'd be at every treatment and then actually followed through. Since she'd sat beside Maya's hospital recliner reading about wolves and marine ecosystems like it was the most important meeting on her calendar. My life is messy, he said finally. Really messy. And for the foreseeable future, Maya has to come first. Always. I wouldn't respect you if it was any other way, Arden said. And I'm not asking for easy, Ethan. I'm just asking for real. Before he could respond, Maya's voice drifted from inside the house. Daddy? Where are you? They both stood, the moment suspended but not broken. Ethan went inside to find Maya sitting up on the couch, rubbing her eyes. Hey, sleepyhead, how do you feel? Good. Hungry. She looked around, taking in her surroundings. Did I fall asleep? I don't remember coming back to the house. You conked out in the car. It's been a big day. Maya's face lit up with the memory. We built a castle and found sea glass, and Ms. Vale showed me the crabs. She looked past Ethan to where Arden stood in the doorway. Can we come back, please? Anytime you want, Arden said. This is your beach now, too. They stayed for an early dinner, pasta that Arden cooked while Maya supervised from a bar stool, offering suggestions about seasoning and sauce consistency. The three of them ate on the deck as the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple that looked too beautiful to be real. Maya told Arden about her school friends and her favorite books and her plan to be a marine biologist when she grew up so she could study dolphins. That's an excellent career choice, Arden said seriously. Marine biology is fascinating. You know what? I have a friend who works at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. If you want, I could arrange for you to visit their lab sometime. See real marine science in action. Maya's eyes went huge. Really? You could do that? I can make a phone call. The rest is up to you and your dad's schedule. Yes! Daddy, can we? Please. Ethan met Arden's eyes over Maya's head, saw the quiet joy there, the pleasure of being able to give this gift. We'll make it work. They left as twilight settled over the ocean, Maya clutching her bucket of shells and sea glass like treasure. At the car, she hugged Arden goodbye with the unselfconscious affection of a child who'd decided someone was important. Thank you for the best day ever, Maya said into Arden's shoulder. Thank you for sharing it with me, Arden replied, and Ethan heard the emotion she was trying to keep out of her voice. The drive home was quiet. Maya content and tired in the back seat, Ethan processing everything that had happened. His phone buzzed at a red light. I meant what I said, about wanting this to be real. Ethan stared at the message, at the vulnerability packed into those 12 words. Then he typed back. So did I. The response came immediately. Then let's figure it out. Together. Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror at Maya, who was watching the streetlights slide past with heavy-lidded eyes. Thought about how one wrong text had led to this moment, to this possibility of something more than just survival. Together, he confirmed. The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm that started to feel almost normal. Treatments on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with Arden showing up faithfully to every single one. Dinner at Arden's house on Sunday, which became a standing tradition neither of them had explicitly agreed to, but both anticipated all week. Texts throughout the day, Arden checking how Maya was feeling, Ethan sending photos of Maya's latest art project or the book she was reading. The lines between patient care and something more personal blurred beyond recognition. Arden started keeping Maya's favorite snacks stocked at the treatment center. She remembered which blanket Maya preferred for the infusions. She learned to read the subtle signs of when Maya was truly tired versus when she was just bored. And with Ethan, the careful distance they'd tried to maintain collapsed entirely. Hands that held during Maya's treatments. Coffee dates while Maya was at school, stolen hours where they talked about everything and nothing. A kiss in Arden's kitchen while Maya was absorbed in a nature documentary, tentative and sweet and terrifying in its implication. "This is really happening," Ethan said against her lips. "Is that okay?" Arden asked. "It's more than okay. It's terrifying and wonderful. And I don't know how to do this." "Neither do I, so we'll figure it out as we go." By the end of the first month of treatments, the change in Maya was undeniable. Her energy levels had improved dramatically. The dark circles under her eyes had faded. She'd gone 3 full weeks without any infections, which was a record for the past year. Dr. Williams confirmed what the blood work already showed. Maya's body was beginning to produce functional antibodies. The treatment was working. "I'd like to transition her to weekly maintenance doses starting next week," Dr. Williams said during their consultation. "The intensive phase has achieved excellent results. Now we shift to supporting her system while it learns to function independently." "Weekly instead of 3 times a week?" Ethan repeated, trying to process what that meant. "That's right. We'll continue monitoring closely, but if this trajectory holds, Maya could be in full remission within 6 months. The word hung in the air, almost too big to comprehend. Remission. His daughter, healthy. Living a normal life without constant medical intervention. "What's remission?" Maya asked from where she sat on the examination table, swinging her legs. "It means your body learns to protect itself again," Dr. Williams explained. "It means you get to be a regular kid who doesn't need special medicine anymore." Maya looked at Ethan with hope and fear mixed in her expression. "Really? Forever?" "We'll still monitor you regularly to make sure everything stays stable," Dr. Williams said carefully. "But yes, if you achieve full remission, you could live a completely normal, healthy life." That night, after Maya was asleep, Ethan sat in his living room trying to absorb the reality of what was happening. His daughter was healing. The experimental treatment that had been her last hope was actually working. They were going to make it. His phone rang. "Arden." "I heard from Dr. Williams," she said. "Ethan, this is incredible." "I don't know what to do with it," he admitted. "I've spent 4 years preparing for the worst. I don't know how to prepare for things actually being okay." "You don't have to prepare. You just have to let yourself believe it's possible." "Easier said than done." "I know." Arden was quiet for a moment. "Can I come over? I know it's late, but I'd really like to see you." "Maya's asleep." "I'm not coming to see Maya, I'm coming to see you." She arrived 20 minutes later, still in her work clothes, but with her hair down and her shoes kicked off the moment she stepped inside. Ethan pulled her into his arms and held on, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume, feeling the solid reality of her against him. "She's going to make it," Arden whispered. "Your daughter is going to live a full, healthy life. Because of you. Because you cared enough to investigate why she'd been rejected. Because you showed up and fought for her. Because you sent a flirty text to the wrong number," Arden corrected with a small smile. "Best accident of my life." "Mine too." They sat on his worn couch, Arden curled against his side, and talked about the future in a way Ethan hadn't let himself do in years. About Maya trying out for soccer and going to sleepovers and attending summer camp. About life beyond survival mode, beyond constant crisis management. "What do you want?" Arden asked. "For yourself, not just for Maya. What does your life look like when you're not consumed by keeping her alive?" Ethan thought about this seriously. "I don't know. I've been a single dad in crisis mode for so long, I'm not sure I remember who I was before that. I'd like to build my design business into something more stable. Maybe take on bigger clients, do more creative work instead of just churning out logos to pay medical bills." "You're talented. I've looked at your portfolio online." "You stalked my portfolio?" "I like to be thorough. And yes, you're genuinely good. You should be doing work that challenges you." "What about you?" What does Arden Vale's life look like when she's not consumed by running a pharmaceutical empire? Arden was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, it looks a lot like this. Coming home to people who matter instead of an empty house. Having dinner with a family instead of eating takeout alone at my desk. Being part of something real instead of just managing optics and board politics. Is that what you want? A family? I want you and Maya in my life, whatever form that takes. She lifted her head to look at him directly. I know it's fast. I know we should probably slow down and be more careful, but I'm 41 years old and I've spent most of my adult life being careful and strategic, and it's left me isolated and alone. I don't want to be careful anymore, Ethan. I want to be reckless and messy and real. Ethan kissed her then, deep and slow and full of everything he couldn't quite articulate. When they broke apart, Arden was smiling. Reckless looks good on you, Ethan said. It feels good. Terrifying, but good. They talked until past midnight, making plans and spinning possibilities. Two people who'd been alone for different reasons, finding unexpected solace in each other. When Arden finally left, slipping out into the quiet night, Ethan stood in his doorway and watched her drive away, feeling something unfamiliar and precious blooming in his chest. Hope. Not the desperate, fragile hope of a father watching his daughter fight for survival, but the sturdy, grounded hope of someone who could finally imagine a future worth building. He checked on Maya before going to bed, standing in her doorway and watching her breathe the way he'd done countless times over the past 4 years. But tonight felt different. Tonight she wasn't just surviving, she was healing, thriving, becoming the person she was always meant to be. We made it, baby, he whispered into the darkness. We actually made it. In her sleep, Maya smiled, and Ethan chose to believe she'd heard him. The transition to weekly treatments felt like stepping into a different world. Instead of organizing their entire lives around the Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, Ethan and Maya suddenly had whole weeks of relative normalcy stretching before them. Maya went back to school full-time for the first time in over a year. She joined the after-school art club. She started talking about trying out for the spring soccer league. Arden still showed up to every Friday treatment, refusing to break the routine they'd established, even though it was technically no longer necessary. She'd arrive at 2:30 with books or small gifts or just herself, settling into the chair beside Maya's recliner like it was the most natural thing in the world. You know you don't have to keep doing this, Ethan said one Friday in late November, 2 months into the weekly schedule. Maya's doing so well now. You could reclaim your Friday afternoons. Arden looked at him like he'd suggested she stop breathing. Why would I want to do that? This is my favorite part of the week. Sitting in a medical treatment center watching an 8-year-old get an infusion? Being with the two of you, yes. She said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Maya, who'd been pretending to read her book but was clearly listening, looked up with a grin. See, Daddy? I told you she likes us. I'm more than like you, Arden said, reaching over to squeeze Maya's hand. I love you both. Very much. The words hung in the air, monumental in their simplicity. It was the first time any of them had said it out loud, though it had been true for weeks now. Maya's smile could have powered the entire building. I love you too, Ms. Vale. Can I call you Arden? Ms. Vale feels weird now. I'd like that very much. Good. Because Daddy loves you too, even though he gets all nervous about saying it. Ethan felt his face go hot. Maya, it's true though, isn't it? Maya looked between them with the devastating honesty of a child who saw exactly what the adults were trying to dance around. You love each other and you're basically together all the time now and you make each other happy, so why are we pretending? Arden started laughing, that real, unguarded laugh that Ethan had come to treasure. She has a point. She usually does, Ethan admitted. He met Arden's eyes across Maya's recliner, saw the warmth and certainty there, and felt the last of his careful defenses crumble. Yeah, baby, I love her. Very much. Finally, Maya said, rolling her eyes dramatically. That took forever. Emma's mom and her boyfriend said they loved each other after like 3 dates. We're a little slower than that, Arden said, still smiling. You're both kind of bad at feelings, but that's okay. I can help. The treatment ended and they went to dinner at a Mexican restaurant Maya loved, the three of them squeezed into a booth designed for 2 adults. Maya chattered about her upcoming school project while working her way through a quesadilla bigger than her head, and Ethan watched Arden help Maya cut her food and wipe salsa off her chin and realized this was what family looked like. Not perfect or traditional or anything like what he'd imagined when he was younger, but real and messy and utterly precious. That night, after Maya was asleep, Arden stayed. They sat on Ethan's back porch with wine he'd bought specifically because he knew she liked it, watching the stars emerge in the November sky. "I've been thinking," Arden said carefully, "about the future, about what this actually looks like long term." Ethan's stomach clenched. "Okay." "My divorce from Gavin will be finalized next month. The investigation into his conduct resulted in his removal from the board entirely. He's facing potential fraud charges for manipulating patient applications for personal gain." She paused. "The point is, that chapter of my life is officially closing." "That's good, isn't it?" "It's necessary. But it also means I need to think about what comes next, and what I want next is you and Maya, permanently, in whatever form that takes." Ethan set down his wine glass. "Arden, we've been together for 3 months. That's not exactly a long time to be making permanent decisions. I spent 3 years married to Gavin and never felt a fraction of what I feel for you after 3 months. Time is relative. What matters is whether this is real, and I know it is. Don't you?" "Yes," Ethan said without hesitation. "But I need to think about Maya, about what's best for her. What's best for her is having people in her life who love her unconditionally and show up consistently. I'm offering to be that person. Not as some occasional visitor or your girlfriend who sees her sometimes. As family." The word landed between them, heavy with implication. "You want to be part of our family," Ethan said slowly. "I want us to be a family, the 3 of us. However that works, whatever that looks like. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow or move into my house next week. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility of building something permanent together." Ethan thought about his small rental house with the leaking faucet and cracked porch, thought about Arden's oceanfront home with its private beach and floor-to-ceiling windows. The disparity between their lives was staggering. "I can't give you what you're used to," he said quietly. "I'm still drowning in medical debt. My freelance work is picking up, but I'm nowhere near your financial level. I come with complications and a chronically ill child and a life that's been defined by crisis management." "Ethan." Arden shifted closer, taking his hands in hers. "I don't need you to give me anything material. I have money. I have houses and cars and more resources than I know what to do with. What I don't have is what you've given me these past 3 months. Purpose beyond my company, connection beyond my work, a reason to come home that isn't just exhaustion. You and Maya have given me a life worth living. That's not something money can buy." "Maya's not cured yet," Ethan said, needing her to understand the full reality. "She's in remission, but that could change. She could relapse. She could develop complications. You'd be signing up for that uncertainty." "I know, and I'm choosing it anyway, because that's what love is. Choosing someone knowing all the ways it could be difficult and doing it anyway because they're worth it." Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding on tight, feeling the solidness of her against him. "I love you," he said into her hair. "I'm terrified and overwhelmed, and I have no idea how to navigate this, but I love you. That's all I need to hear. We'll figure out the rest as we go." They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped around each other under the stars. 2 people who'd been alone for different reasons finally finding their way home. The holidays arrived with the kind of California winter that barely qualified as cold. Maya's energy continued to improve, week by week. By mid-December, her latest blood work showed antibody levels within normal range for the first time in 4 years. Dr. Williams called it remarkable. Ethan called it a miracle. Maya just called it cool and went back to planning her science fair project. "What do you 2 usually do for Christmas?" Arden asked one Sunday morning in early December. They were at her house, Maya building an elaborate sandcastle kingdom on the beach, while Ethan and Arden watched from the deck. "Not much," Ethan admitted. "The past few years have been pretty low-key. I get Maya a few presents, we watch holiday movies, make cookies. We used to go to my mom's in Arizona, but she's not doing well health-wise, and travel's been complicated with Maya's treatments." What if we did something together this year? The three of us. Like what? I don't know, something memorable. Something that marks this as the year everything changed. Maya came running up the stairs, breathless and sandy and grinning. Can we go look at the Christmas lights at the harbor? Emma went last week and said they have a huge tree and everything. We could do that, Ethan said. Maybe next weekend? What about tonight? Arden suggested. We could get dinner in the harbor area, walk around looking at lights, make a whole evening of it. Maya's face lit up like she'd suggested Disneyland.
Really? Can we?
So that night they drove to the harbor, the three of them in Arden's car because it was newer and more reliable than Ethan's aging sedan. The waterfront was transformed into a wonderland of lights, every boat and building wrapped in strings of colored bulbs that reflected off the dark water. A massive Christmas tree dominated the central plaza, at least 30 feet tall and covered in ornaments. Maya was enchanted, running from display to display, pointing out her favorites, begging to take photos in front of everything. Arden indulged her completely, snapping picture after picture, even getting a stranger to take a family photo of the three of them in front of the big tree. They had dinner at a seafood restaurant with harbor views, Maya insisting on ordering the fish tacos Arden recommended. Halfway through the meal, Maya suddenly went quiet, her expression turning serious. "What's wrong, baby?" Ethan asked. "Nothing's wrong. I was just thinking." Maya looked at Arden. "Are you going to be with us for Christmas? Like actually with us? Not just visiting?" Arden glanced at Ethan, clearly unsure how to answer. He gave her a small nod, giving her permission to be honest. "I'd like to be," Arden said carefully, "if that's okay with you and your dad." "It's more than okay, but I mean like family with us, not like a guest." "Maya," Ethan started, but she cut him off. "I know you two are trying to be careful or whatever, but I'm not dumb. Arden comes to all my treatments, and we have dinner every Sunday, and you hold hands when you think I'm not looking, and she keeps clothes at our house now. She's basically my family already, so can we just make it official?" Ethan felt his throat close up. "Official how?" Maya looked between them with perfect 8-year-old logic. "I want Arden to be my family, like really my family. Not just Daddy's girlfriend or whatever. I want her to be mine too." Arden's eyes had gone bright with unshed tears. "Maya, I would be honored to be your family, in whatever way you want me to be." "Good. Because I've been thinking, and if you and Daddy got married, you'd be my stepmom. And I know stepmoms get a bad reputation in fairy tales, but I think you'd be really good at it." The restaurant went very quiet around their table. Ethan stared at his daughter, who'd just casually proposed marriage on his behalf, with all the confidence of a child who saw things simply and clearly. "Maya, that's not... we haven't..." He couldn't find words that made sense. "I know you're going to say it's too fast, or we should wait, or whatever grown-ups say when they're scared," Maya continued calmly. "But you love each other, and we're happy together, and waiting doesn't actually make anything better. It just means we waste time being careful instead of being a real family." Arden was crying now, tears streaming down her face, but she was also smiling. "You're absolutely right. I usually am." Maya turned to Ethan. "So what do you think, Daddy? Are you going to ask her, or should I?" Ethan looked at Arden across the table, at this brilliant, complicated woman who'd crashed into their lives because of a wrong number and decided to stay because she loved them, looked at his daughter, who was healthier than she'd been in years and brave enough to ask for what she wanted, thought about all the reasons this was too fast and too soon and potentially reckless. Then he thought about what Arden had said about being tired of careful and strategic, about wanting something real and messy and honest. He reached across the table and took Arden's hand. "I don't have a ring. I haven't planned a romantic proposal. I'm still in debt and living in a rental house and figuring out how to rebuild my design business. But if you're willing to take on all of that, take on us, I'd really like to marry you, Arden Vale." Arden was laughing and crying simultaneously, nodding before he'd even finished the sentence. "Yes, absolutely yes." Maya cheered loud enough that the entire restaurant turned to look at them, and Ethan didn't even care. He stood up and moved around the table to kiss Arden properly, and the other diners started applauding, swept up in the moment. When they finally pulled apart, Arden was still crying, but her smile was incandescent. I can't believe you just proposed to me in a harbor seafood restaurant because our 8-year-old told you to, she said. Our 8-year-old, Ethan repeated. You hear that, Maya? Arden's officially going to be your stepmom. I know. That's what I said. Maya went back to her fish tacos like she hadn't just orchestrated an engagement. Can we get dessert to celebrate? They got dessert. They walked around the harbor for another hour looking at lights, Maya between them holding both their hands, announcing to anyone who would listen that her dad just got engaged. They drove home with Christmas music on the radio and Maya singing along off-key in the back seat. At Ethan's house, they tucked Maya into bed together, Arden reading the bedtime story while Ethan sat on the floor beside the bed. When Maya's eyes finally drifted closed, Arden kissed her forehead gently. Good night, sweetheart. I love you. Love you too, Mom, Maya murmured, already half asleep. Arden froze, her eyes flying to Ethan's. He saw the panic and hope and fear all mixed together in her expression. She called me Mom, Arden whispered. She did. Is that okay? I don't want to overstep or replace anyone, or her biological mother walked out when she was 2 and hasn't contacted us in 6 years, Ethan said quietly. You're not replacing anyone. You're becoming exactly what Maya needs you to be. Arden's hands were shaking as they left Maya's room. In the hallway, she turned to Ethan with wonder written all over her face. I'm going to be someone's mother, Maya's mother. If you want to be. I want it more than I've wanted anything in my entire life, including my company, including everything I've built. This matters more. Ethan pulled her close, and they stood in his narrow hallway holding each other, 2 broken people who'd somehow found a way to be whole together. The next few weeks passed in a blur of planning and preparation. Arden insisted on keeping the engagement quiet until after the holidays. Not because she was ashamed, but because she wanted to protect Maya from media attention. The gossip sites would have a field day with the story of the pharmaceutical CEO marrying a patient's father, and neither of them wanted that scrutiny falling on an 8-year-old in remission. They spent Christmas together, the 3 of them in Arden's beach house because it was bigger and because Maya had fallen in love with the ocean view. Ethan brought what decorations he had, and they strung lights and hung stockings and made the space feel lived in and warm. On Christmas morning, Maya woke them both at 6:30, bouncing on their bed with the kind of energy she hadn't had in years. Santa came! There are presents everywhere! Come on! They stumbled downstairs to find that Arden had possibly gone overboard on gifts. The area under the tree was buried in wrapped packages. Arden, Ethan said, taking in the excess, this is too much. It's my first Christmas as a parent. I'm allowed to spoil her. You're going to set impossible expectations for future years. Good. I like being impossible to top. Maya tore through her presents with gleeful abandon. Books about marine biology, art supplies, a microscope for her science projects, new clothes, a tablet loaded with educational apps. But her favorite gift was the last one, a small box that Arden handed her personally. Inside was a necklace with a charm shaped like a DNA helix. It represents your immune system, Arden explained. Your DNA learning to protect itself again. I had it custom made. Maya stared at it with reverence, then threw her arms around Arden's neck. It's perfect. Will you help me put it on? Arden clasped it around Maya's neck with trembling fingers, and Ethan took a photo of them together, his daughter and his fiancée, building something new and precious. Later, after Maya had gone outside to play with some of her new things, Arden handed Ethan a wrapped package. For me? He asked, surprised. You didn't think I'd forget you, did you? Inside was a leather portfolio case, expensive and professional, embossed with his name and the words Cole Creative Design. It's for when you start taking on those bigger clients, Arden said, a reminder that you're allowed to think bigger than just survival. Ethan felt emotion clog his throat. I don't have anything this nice for you. Yes, you do. Arden took his hand, lacing their fingers together. You gave me a family. You gave me a life beyond my company. That's worth more than anything money can buy. The new year arrived with champagne toasts and noisemakers, Maya staying up until midnight for the first time because she was finally healthy enough to handle the late night. They stood on Arden's deck watching fireworks bloom over the ocean, Maya between them counting down the seconds. 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year! Ethan kissed Arden while Maya cheered and thought about how much had changed in a single year. How an accidental text message had led to this moment, to this family, to this future they were building together. In January, Dr. Williams delivered the news they'd been hoping for. Maya's antibody levels had remained stable and strong for 3 consecutive months. Her body was producing functional immune responses on its own. She was officially in full remission. What does this mean for her treatment? Ethan asked, gripping Arden's hand tight enough to hurt. We'll continue monthly monitoring for the next year just to be safe, Dr. Williams said. But if she maintains this trajectory, Maya can live a completely normal life. Regular school, sports, travel, all of it. She'll need to continue basic preventive care, and we'll want to see her for annual checkups, but she's essentially cured. Cured. The word Ethan had been afraid to even think echoed in his head like a prayer answered. Maya, who'd been sitting on the examination table swinging her legs, looked up with perfect seriousness. So I can try out for soccer? Dr. Williams laughed. You can absolutely try out for soccer. And go to Emma's sleepover next month? Yes. And go to science camp this summer? All of it, Maya. You can do all of it. Maya whooped with joy, and Ethan buried his face in Arden's shoulder and cried, finally letting himself believe that his daughter was going to survive. That they were going to have a future beyond just making it to the next treatment, the next crisis, the next desperate hope. That night, they celebrated with pizza and ice cream and Maya's favorite movie. Halfway through, Maya fell asleep on the couch between them, her head on Arden's lap, her feet in Ethan's. She made it, Arden whispered, running her fingers through Maya's thin hair. She actually made it. We all made it, Ethan corrected, because you showed up and fought for her when you didn't have to. I had to. The moment I read her file, the moment I understood what Gavin had done, there was no other choice. Arden looked down at Maya with infinite tenderness. She's my daughter now. Of course I was going to fight for her. They set a wedding date for April, wanting to give Maya time to fully stabilize before adding more major life changes. Ethan moved into Arden's beach house in February, giving up his rental with its cracked porch and leaking faucet and memories of desperation. Maya got her own room overlooking the ocean, decorated exactly how she wanted, with help from both her parents. The transition was surprisingly smooth. Maya adjusted to her new school with ease, making friends quickly and joining the soccer team just like she'd wanted. Ethan's design business grew as he finally had the emotional bandwidth to pursue bigger projects. And Arden restructured her role at Helix Biosciences, delegating more responsibilities so she could actually have a life outside her office. The wedding itself was small and private, just immediate family and close friends on the beach behind their house. Maya served as the ring bearer, walking down the sandy aisle with intense concentration to deliver both rings without dropping them in the sand. Ethan stood under an arch of driftwood and flowers, watching Arden walk toward him in a simple white dress, and marveled at how they'd gotten here, how one wrong number, one accidental text message, had led to this moment. I love you, he mouthed as she reached him. I love you too, she mouthed back. The ceremony was brief and heartfelt. When it came time for vows, Arden turned slightly to include Maya, who stood beside them in her flower crown. I promise to love you both with everything I have, Arden said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. To show up consistently and fight for this family, and choose you every single day. To honor Lily's memory by living fully and loving completely. To be the mother Maya deserves and the partner Ethan needs. To build a life worth celebrating instead of just surviving. Ethan's vows were simpler but no less true. I promise to let you in, even when it's scary. To trust that you're here for the long haul. To build something real and messy and honest with you. To love you and let you love us back. Maya, not to be left out, grabbed both their hands. And I promise to be the best daughter and stepdaughter ever, and to remind you both when you're being dumb about feelings. The small gathering erupted in laughter, and the officiant declared them a family. The reception was casual and joyful, barbecue on the beach, music from a playlist Maya had helped create, dancing in the sand as the sun set over the ocean. Maya stayed up late again, running around with the other kids in attendance, her laughter carrying on the sea breeze. At some point, Arden's former colleague from her research days, Dr. Patricia Chen, pulled her aside. "You did it," Patricia said quietly. "You built the company that saves kids like Lily, and you found a family in the process." "I did," Arden agreed, watching Ethan dance with Maya, both of them laughing as they tried to teach each other ridiculous moves. "I really did. Lily would be proud of you, of all of this." Arden felt tears prick her eyes. "I hope so. I built Helix for her, but I think this—" She gestured at her new family, at the life she'd accidentally stumbled into. "This is what she would have wanted for me even more, to be happy, to have people who matter. You deserve it, Arden, every bit of it." Later, after the guests had left and Maya had finally crashed from exhaustion, Ethan and Arden stood on their deck watching the stars emerge over the ocean. "We did it," Ethan said, pulling her close. "We actually built this. We did. A family. A real one. Do you ever think about how we got here? How it all started with me sending you a flirty text meant for someone else?" Arden laughed. "All the time. Best wrong number in history. I was trying to tell some woman from a dating app that she was too good for me. She probably was. I, on the other hand, am exactly as messy and complicated as you are. We match. We do." Ethan turned her to face him, serious now. "Thank you for showing up at my door that day. For demanding answers instead of just sending a dismissive text. For caring about Maya when you had no reason to." "I had every reason to. She's extraordinary. You're both extraordinary. And I was so lonely and empty and desperate for something real that I didn't even realize it until you accidentally gave it to me." They kissed under the stars, two people who'd been alone finding completion in each other. Inside, Maya was curled up in her bed, the DNA helix necklace still around her neck, healthy and whole and loved. On her nightstand sat a framed photo from that first day at the beach. The three of them crouched beside the sandcastle they'd built together, smiling at the camera like they'd been a family for years instead of weeks. In the photo, you couldn't see the pain they'd each carried. Couldn't see Ethan's desperation or Arden's loneliness or Maya's illness. All you could see was three people choosing each other, building something new from broken pieces, creating family from accidental connection. A year after that wrong text message, Ethan stood in his beautiful home with his healthy daughter and his wife and thought about all the ways life could surprise you, how the worst moments could lead to the best outcomes, how love could show up in the most unexpected packages and change everything. The next morning, Maya woke them both early, bouncing on their bed with enthusiasm. "First day as a real official complete family," she announced. "Can we have pancakes to celebrate?" They made pancakes together in their kitchen, the three of them navigating around each other with the practiced ease of people learning to share space. Maya chattered about soccer practice and her upcoming science fair project. Ethan burned the first batch of pancakes while distracted by Arden stealing kisses. Arden attempted to flip one and sent it flying across the kitchen, making Maya dissolve into giggles. It was chaotic and imperfect, and absolutely perfect. After breakfast, they walked down to their beach, the same stretch of sand where Maya had built her first castle and found her first sea glass and started believing in futures again. She ran ahead, splashing in the shallows, her voice carrying back to them on the wind. "Thank you," Arden said, watching Maya play, "for letting me be part of this, for trusting me with her. Thank you for fighting for us when you didn't have to, for seeing value in a desperate single dad and his sick kid." "I didn't see a desperate single dad. I saw a devoted father doing everything humanly possible to save his daughter. And I saw a little girl who deserved every chance at life." Arden squeezed his hand. "I saw my family, even if I didn't know it yet." Maya came running back, holding something in her cupped hands. "Look, a perfect sand dollar. That's supposed to be good luck." "I think we've had all the good luck we need," Ethan said, but he took the sand dollar anyway, marveling at its delicate symmetry. "There's no such thing as too much luck," Maya said wisely. "We should keep collecting it, just in case." So they spent the morning hunting for treasures on their beach, sand dollars and sea glass and interesting shells, building sandcastles that would wash away with the tide and making memories that would last forever, being a family in all the ways that mattered. That afternoon, back at the house, Ethan's phone rang with a client inquiry, a major company interested in a complete branding overhaul, the kind of project that could really establish Cole Creative Design as a serious firm. He took the call on the deck while Arden and Maya sorted through their beach treasures inside. When he hung up, Arden was watching him with a knowing smile. Good news? Potentially great news. Big client, big project, big visibility. You're going to say yes, right? You're not going to turn it down because of some misplaced guilt about success? Ethan thought about the leather portfolio she'd given him for Christmas, about her quiet insistence that he was allowed to want things beyond survival. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to build something I'm proud of. Good, because you're talented and driven and you deserve to have a career that fulfills you, not just pays the bills. Look at us, both pursuing careers that matter, raising a daughter together, being functional adults. Don't get too excited. We're definitely going to mess this up sometimes. Probably. But we'll figure it out together. Together, Arden agreed. 6 months after the wedding, on a perfect October afternoon, they gathered at Maya's elementary school for the science fair. Her project on marine ecosystems and climate change had taken months to complete, with extensive research and help from the contacts Arden had at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. Maya stood beside her display board with pride, explaining her findings to judges and parents with the confidence of a kid who'd learned to advocate for herself in hospital rooms and treatment centers. When she won first place in her grade category, her scream of joy could be heard across the entire gymnasium. At the celebration dinner afterward, Maya couldn't stop talking about what she wanted to research next, about her plans for the regional science competition, about maybe studying marine biology at UC San Diego when she was old enough for college. That's 10 years away, Ethan pointed out. Let's maybe focus on 4th grade first. But it's good to have goals, right, Arden? You always say successful people plan ahead. I do say that, but your dad's also right. Enjoy being 9. You don't have to figure out your whole life right now. I'm not 9 yet. My birthday's not until next month. Speaking of which, Arden said carefully, your dad and I have been talking about what you might want for your birthday. I already know what I want. Oh yeah, what's that? Maya looked between them with perfect seriousness. A little brother or sister. I've been thinking about it, and being an only child is kind of boring. Plus, I'm really good at taking care of things now. I could help. Ethan choked on his water. Arden's eyes went wide. They stared at each other across the table, having an entire silent conversation in 3 seconds. That's not exactly the kind of thing we can arrange for next month, Ethan managed. I know, I'm not dumb, but you could start working on it. Maya speared a piece of chicken with her fork. Just think about it. That's all I'm asking. After dinner, after Maya was asleep, Ethan and Arden sat in their living room processing their daughter's birthday request. She wants a sibling, Arden said wonderingly. Apparently. How do you feel about that? Honestly? Ethan thought about it seriously. A year ago, I couldn't imagine anything beyond keeping Maya alive, but now I can imagine all kinds of futures, including maybe expanding our family, if that's something you want. I'm 42, Arden said quietly. I've never been pregnant. I spent years telling myself I didn't want children, then more years thinking I'd missed my chance. I don't know if it's even possible. Do you want to find out? Arden looked at him with something raw and vulnerable in her expression. Yes, I think I do. I love being Maya's mother. The idea of doing that from the very beginning, of raising a child with you from birth, of giving Maya the sibling she's asking for, yes, I want that. Then let's try, Ethan said simply. No pressure, no timeline. We'll see what happens. What happened was that 6 months later, Arden discovered she was pregnant. They told Maya on her 9th birthday, presenting her with a wrapped box containing a tiny t-shirt that read, Big Sister. Maya stared at it for a solid 10 seconds before the implications sank in. Then she launched herself at Arden with enough force to nearly knock her over. Really? Really, truly? I'm going to be a big sister? Really, truly, Arden confirmed, laughing and crying simultaneously. In about 7 months. This is the best birthday present ever. Even better than the microscope last year. Even better than everything. The pregnancy was healthy and uneventful. Arden working reduced hours and letting her executive team handle more of Helix's day-to-day operations. Maya took her role as big sister in training seriously, reading books about baby care and helping set up the nursery and talking to Arden's growing belly about all the things she planned to teach her new sibling. I'm going to show them how to find the best shells on the beach, she told the baby one evening, her hand on Arden's stomach, and how to build really good sand castles. And I'll protect them if they get sick, because I know all about doctors and hospitals and how to be brave. Ethan watched his daughter make promises to her unborn sibling and marveled at how far they'd all come. From desperate and alone to this. A family expanding, a future secure, love abundant. The baby arrived in early spring, a healthy boy they named Liam after Arden's sister Lily. Maya was the first to hold him after his parents, cradling him with intense concentration while Ethan and Arden watched their daughter become a big sister. He's so tiny, Maya whispered. Was I this tiny once? Even tinier, Ethan said. You were a little peanut. I'm going to take such good care of him. I'm going to be the best big sister ever. She was. Maya helped with feedings and diaper changes and entertained Liam when he was fussy. She sang him the same songs Ethan used to sing to her when she was sick. She introduced him to the ocean and the beach and all her favorite treasures. 2 years after the wrong text message that started everything, Ethan stood on his deck watching his family. Arden sat in a beach chair with baby Liam sleeping against her chest, while Maya built sandcastles nearby, her strong, healthy body running and playing without fear. The afternoon sun turned everything golden, and Ethan felt gratitude so intense it was almost painful. His phone buzzed with a text. For a wild second, his heart jumped, thinking it might be another wrong number, another accidental message that would change everything. But it was just Arden, even though she was 20 feet away. Thank you for that wrong text. Best mistake anyone ever made. Ethan smiled and typed back. Best mistake I ever made was keeping your number saved in my phone. Second best was being brave enough to let you into our lives. Third best? Marrying you, definitely top 3. Only top 3? Fine. Number 1. You're number 1. Arden looked up from her phone and smiled at him across the deck, that brilliant smile that still made his heart stutter. Liam stirred against her chest, and Maya came running up the stairs from the beach with a perfect sand dollar in her hand. Look what I found! More good luck! We definitely don't need more luck, Ethan said, pulling all of them close. We've got everything we need right here. And they did. A family built from broken pieces and accidental connections. A daughter who'd survived against the odds. A son born from love they'd thought was too late. A partnership forged in crisis and strengthened by choice. All because Ethan Cole sent one flirty text to the wrong number at 3:17 on a Tuesday afternoon, and Arden Vale chose to show up instead of sending a dismissive response. The best mistakes, Ethan had learned, were the ones that led you exactly where you needed to be. He looked at his family, his extraordinary, impossible, perfect family, and knew he wouldn't change a single thing, not even the wrong number, especially not the wrong number.